Having a quorum present, I call this meeting the Board of Education to order. The board would like to welcome the audience and thank you for attending. Viewers can watch TCAPS Board of Education meetings and committee meetings live or on demand at any time at www.tcaps.net/board. Please rise and join Miss Dillon's third grade class at Willow Hill in the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, for the appointment of temporary secretary, I hereby appoint Stacy Hozak, board recording secretary, as temporary secretary until such a time as the secretary of the Board of Education has been elected. We are at the review and approval portion of the agenda. Do we have any motion for the approval of the agenda or any changes?
I do have a couple. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, you can go first.
I just wanted to pull a couple of things off consent. And one of them is item E, the Sex Education Advisory Board appointment of co-chair, and I guess make that 11, I think.
That'll be D, F, or discussion item F rather.
Okay, F. C. Yeah,
11F.
yeah, I see. D, I don't see E, but whatever. And the other one is one of the policies. I just had one small thing on it, and it's the 3410, the opioid antagonist, and that would go to 11C 3I.
No, see, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. Any other changes?
Yes, I also had the 3211 board policy. That could be moved to a discussion item C3. I had C3I too, but I'm guessing it'd be the one after that.
Okay.
And lastly, I would like to pull board policy 3303 gifts and donations.
Okay.
And I'd like to pull F, please.
The grant acceptance mahogany foundation?
Any others?
I do believe procedurally there was one that was meant to be removed, but it was in our packet as well. 3402.
Okay.
I don't know if it should just not be in consent and should be removed, I believe.
Yeah, we'll remove that and we'll bring that back next month with some more technical
Okay.
changes. We're waiting for some information from June of a new update.
That's 3402, not 3408, right?
3402.
Okay.
And again, that is just removed and we bring back to committee next month.
I had a question actually.
Good night, because I think. I think that's more things we pulled from consent the entire last year.
Right.
So we
New
made,
year, new
we
board.
made the sex ed thing 11F and there's no 11E.
I didn't see. F.
Oh, and I also had, thank you, because I had, originally,
So
that's
it's
why I
E?
told John, is
Yeah.
I would like to pull an organizational meeting in I, number 2, designation of day, time, and place for 2025 board meetings to a discussion item.
I'm sorry, where are you?
That's in
consent.
I too.
Thank you.
Maybe we should just say what we'd like to
So
leave
that's gonna be,
on consent.
Yeah, no.
stop.
Yeah.
Yes, and that is,
That'll be
that-
11, discussion 11E.
that's E, yeah.
Okay.
Any others? Okay, we take a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I move, oh, sorry,
You
I never get to do it. I move to move the consent calendar as amended.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Dr. Van Wagner, could you just, for everybody's convenience, could you just summarize now what is item?
I think that's gonna take a minute.
Discussion?
That's gonna take a
Okay.
minute. If you wanna sit and wait, we can, or if you wanna move on and then we can, once we get it
Whenever
figured
it's
out.
ready, that's fine, we'll keep
Okay.
rolling.
All right. Okay, we are on to number 5, the election of officers in the agenda. Nominations are in order for the office of president. Are there any nominations?
I will nominate Scott Newman Bell to serve as president of the Board of Education until the organizational meeting in January.
I second.
I think Beth got it, I'll say. All right. Are there any other nominations? Scott Newman Bale is the individual nominated for the office of president. Voting will occur for one at a time in order in which the names were nominated. The first name to receive 4 votes is elected for the office. Stacy, please conduct a roll call vote for Scott Newman Bale as president.
Trustee Raymond,
Yes.
trustee Pack,
Yes.
trustee Ballinger,
Yes.
trustee Bird,
Yes.
trustee Moon Moore,
Yes.
trustee Schmidt,
Yes.
and trustee Newman Bale.
Yes, thank you for the vote of confidence.
Okay, I declare by a unanimous vote Scott Newman Bale as president of the Board of Education until the organizational meeting in January of next year. Thank you for the opportunity to serve as the acting chairperson. More business than I think I've ever had. The newly elected president will now preside.
I know, I did joke that if this was one I was gonna get kicked out of, now's probably the time, because this is gonna be a confusing one. But moving on to the next item, nominations are in order for the office of vice president. Are there any nominations?
I'm gonna nominate Erica Moon Moore to serve as vice president of the Board of Education until the organizational meeting in January of next year.
I second.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, there is one individual nominated for the office of vice president. Voting will occur, Stacy, please conduct a roll call vote for the candidate Erica Moore.
Trustee Ballinger,
Yes.
trustee Bird,
Yes.
trustee Pack,
Yes.
trustee Raymond,
Yes.
trustee Schmidt,
Yes.
trustee Moon Moore,
Yes.
and trustee Newman Bale.
Yes. I declare by unanimous vote, Erica Moore is vice president of the Board of Education until the organizational meeting in January of next year. Moving on to secretary, nominations are in order for the office of secretary. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Josie Ballinger to serve as secretary of the Board of Education until the organizational meeting in January of next year.
I second.
I didn't know if Erica said anything with Beth, so I guess we'll put Beth there. Are there any other nominations? Okay, there's only one nomination, so Stacy, please conduct a roll call vote for candidate Josie Ballinger.
Trustee Bird,
Yes.
trustee Pack,
Yes.
trustee Moon Moore,
Yes.
trustee Raymond,
Yes.
trustee Schmidt,
Yes.
trustee Ballinger,
Yes.
trustee Newman Bale.
Yes, motion carries. I declare by a unanimous vote Josie Ballinger as secretary of the Board of Education until the organizational meeting in January of next year. Stacy, thank you for serving as temporary secretary, and the newly elected secretary will now assume secretarial responsibilities. Nominations are now in order for the office of treasurer. Are there any nominations?
I nominate Andrew Raymond to serve as treasurer of the Board of Education until the organizational meeting in January of next year.
I second.
Okay, are there any other nominations? Okay, there's one individual nominated as office of treasurer. Stacy, please conduct a roll call vote for candidate Andrew Raymond.
Moon Moore, or trustee Moon Moore?
Yes.
Trustee Pack,
Yes.
trustee Ballinger,
Yes.
trustee Bird,
Yes.
trustee Schmidt,
Yes.
trustee Raymond, and trustee Newman Bale.
Yes. I declare by unanimous vote Andrew Raymond as treasurer of the Board of Education until the organizational meeting in January of next year. So that concludes that portion. So now we can go on to the establishment of board committees and representatives. So we obviously have the executive committee, which is president, vice president, and a rotating member. But we do have curriculum and finance, which are our two standing committees. We also have a number of other committees, and I believe I had heard of a few comments of like, that we wanted to clarify a few other committees as well from board members, and I'm fine to add those, I think specifically central grade was one.
Visioning. Such a great vision.
I think that was the only one, but
And
And
then,
then the wellness, nutrition, it's here, never
yeah,
mind.
so we,
Sorry, yep.
yeah. So I guess we can start with the two standing committees, which is curriculum and finance. Do we have, I guess we can start by who wants to be where, this is the fun process.
I would like to be on paper.
so would I.
Alright. It is, and then finance?
Tyler choice.
It'd be
As
weird if you didn't
treasurer.
say
Yeah.
I'll stay on finance.
Yeah.
And Ty, are you okay to serve on finance?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's the least dramatic discussion we've had, so.
No drama.
I could be an alternate with finance, and then usually there's an alternate with curriculum too.
There's curriculum and finance both have an alternate.
Okay, so,
Yep, thank you for making that point. I would be happy to serve as the alternate for finance.
I would like to.
That's it, so just said she would
okay.
too.
Okay.
I'm happy to be alternate or Ty, if you wanna be alternate for curriculum.
Sure.
generally speaking, there's a lot of, yeah, we do have an official alternate, but there's usually at least one member who isn't, so we usually go, everyone can, if they want, have the opportunity to be on at least a couple of meetings, so. So I am hearing Ty is the alternate for curriculum, Beth for finance. And again, I'm sure there'll be plenty of availability for everyone to do some of both. So that seems to be established. Reinstatement committee is a standing committee, curriculum chair, board president, and then we have the alternate already. I think we're gonna be hopefully light on those this year. And then nutrition and fitness, formerly health and well-being. Now when we go through this, I guess the reason I wanted to make sure we added this is we obviously have to balance out assignments to different things. So obviously if someone wants to do more and people don't, that's fine. But if everyone wants to do different things, so be cognizant of if there's things you really want to do, yeah, we could do them as a group or we can do them one at a time. But nutrition and fitness, is there people who want to be on nutrition and fitness?
I would like to be.
I mean, I'm also interested.
Alright,
I'm also interested in the sustainability though too.
okay. And I guess that's what we could, I think it would be easier for us to say which ones we would do and then fill them in, 'cause personally, is that way. Yeah, I'm not picking on you, Beth, but if you wanna be on them all, you can then say, you know what, I scratched this one or that, and then and if someone only wants to do one, I think that would be fine too, so we go through and so Thai, sustainability and nutrition.
I would like to be on sustainability.
Okay,
And I'm happy to be a alternate for the nutrition and fitness team. I just, I've served, I think, the longest on that committee and just think to step down and let a couple other board members serve on it, I think is a great thing, so.
okay,
I'm happy to be an alternative and normally we haven't really had communication, like if someone can't attend that meeting, so maybe we could add
Yeah.
that if, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't usually know when those meetings are happening, so we'll just have to change practice on it.
Okay, yeah, cause then if, either of you can't make it, I'm happy to join in, so.
and then we also have the central grade
We'll
vision
get you the dates.
as well, visioning.
And if we need an alternate on sustainability, I'm also happy to do
Okay.
that.
Yeah, and I was on it before, so.
What's the central grade visioning? What are
Well, you know, that's really just an ad hoc group. It's a visioning committee that is led by the architect, John Dancer with Cornerstone, correct?
Mhm.
And so we gave them a list of names and we included spots for 2 board members. Again, can't have a full committee of 3, so there are 2. We originally had 3 board members showing interest. So I talked again with only 2, so I talked to Scott, and this is how Scott thought would be best to identify the 2 board members that, again, it's not an organizing, it's just serving with all the rest of about 25,
20 to 30.
20 to 30 community members, staff in that building to serve just as a part of that visioning committee, working with the architect who's leading that work.
Yeah, and all of these other committees, I should have said that too, obviously the finance, exec, and curriculum are chaired by the board members, whereas all the rest of them are, we are appointing someone to that has a separate person leading that, whether it be a facilitator or a chair.
And I had expressed some interest of the central grade visioning, but I also was on the visioning for Montessori, and so I felt like it was a really fantastic process to see from start to finish. So just, you know, the other two board members who haven't been through it, I think is a good thing. So if for some reason that doesn't work out and someone has to step away, I'm happy to step in. Whatever that's worth.
So is there anyone else who wants to be on that?
I would
So right
like
now
to.
it's,
Oh, okay.
Beth and Josie had volunteered like
But
last
I-
month,
You,
but
you,
Ty mentioned, did you say you wanted to be on central grid?
No,
Oh, okay.
just sustainability
sustainability,
and
gotcha.
nutrition.
what about you, Andrew?
I mean, if there's, I can be an alternate, I'm happy to do that.
it sounds like,
Central
this sounds like people who want to do it, like, so
Yeah.
you're fine.
Well, I mean,
I-
maybe
I'm
have
not saying I
Erica
don't.
alternate for if we needed somebody with that, and then same with sustainability.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Maybe an alternate if we needed somebody, we could.
We could do, yeah, so Josie and Beth, is that? And then Erica is an alternate.
And then I'll step away from sustainability, hopefully, and
Okay, yeah.
continue to have a very practical approach.
And I'm under a fairly safe assumption that anything that comes out of those are gonna come to finance committee anyway, so I'm happy to let other people.
I mean, most things do, so it's, yeah, so of this, I have central grade visioning, I have Josie and Beth, alternate Erica. Nutrition and fitness, I have Beth and Ty, alternate Erica. Sustainability, Ty and Holly, alternate Josie. Is that correct?
It's fine with me, is everybody feeling that this is balanced though, cause I too wanna make sure everybody has an opportunity to serve on.
Could you repeat it one more time?
Yeah.
Can we go through,
Yeah,
Stacy, go through each list, so.
So curriculum,
Okay.
sorry, I didn't catch some
So
of that.
curriculum is Josie, Beth,
And
Holly.
Holly.
Ty as an
Thank you.
alternate.
I don't know why I had a C,
With Ty as the
as a
official
Ty,
alternate.
as the official alternate. And then finance is Andrew, Erica, Ty, with Beth as the official alternate. And then central grade visioning, we have Josie and Beth with Erica as alternate. Nutrition and fitness, Beth and Ty with Erica as alternate. Sustainability, Ty and Holly with Josie as alternate. And then we did have one clarification, which just need board input on, which is we've run into a situation a few times where when the board president is not here, the vice president takes over. If the vice president and the president are not here, by definition, the secretary calls the meeting to order and the rest of the board nominates a presiding president for that meeting. So that's easy. For committees, there's different ways you can do it. It's at the election. If the board does not dictate and the chair is elected by the committee, which is how we do it, then there is no necessarily de facto second vice chair. There's no vice chair of the committee.
Any
So,
of our committees.
Any of our committees.
Yeah.
Well, we only have two,
Yeah.
I guess.
Really?
So if the chair is not available, should there be a default chair? Is there someone, is it the next named person? Is it the most senior board member since? I don't really mind, to be honest, who it is, but I've been asked a couple of
We
times
should
what the
have a
process is and I
consistent
don't have.
protocol.
I've always just done the next senior person,
I would probably agree.
just because they've probably had the best chance of
Having some history.
having some history and chairing a meeting probably or committee meeting previously. Alright, So that's how we'll go to
Okay.
going
I'm
forward.
laughing, I'm over here, of course you would agree.
yeah.
That's me.
I'm not disagreeing, I'm just teasing.
You can pull that card for at least 2 more years.
Andrew's like, I think you should actually unalphabetical, reverse alphabetical, so they leave me at the
Hey,
end.
what if I'm not here? I was thinking outside of it.
Well,
I know.
yeah, and then you have if Eric and Monroe's not here, then we have a 2 or 3 way tie.
Yeah.
We'll play rock, paper, scissors at
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah.
And I would go further to add, just so we've had the conversation, it's the most senior person left on the original slate of people scheduled to be at the meeting, because then what happens if you then add someone else to the meeting later? Just so it's I said, I wanna make sure we're just clear on it, because otherwise it could become unfair. Thankfully, we're not a contentious board, but trying to put some structure in place.
There's always time.
Alright, so that I think is all of the committees. Then we also have roundtable, which is rotated, and the Superintendent Board of Education Advisory Committee, again, rotated. So we don't need to assign that. One thing that we do have is board office hours. I think we've seen very mixed results. We had a really bad run, then we had a little pickup run. I had sneak peek of my report out. I had one person come and see me in December. So I don't know, we've talked about if we want to do something different. I'm open to, I feel like it's not very engaging, like people don't seem to be using it. I don't know if it's the location, if it's the time, so.
I would like to get some input on that, cause for me, like, anybody that I know who's come, and I've usually had somebody show up, parking is always an issue. It seemed, and just being downtown and parking at that time of night, for some reason, I don't know, it seems to be an issue for people I know,
I had to
but,
park the furthest away that I had to park like that from when I did it.
yeah. So I'm wondering if, I don't know if we can have it in a building.
We can certainly have it in building soon, so.
The only thing I'll caution you, and we ran into this with Erica, you might be the only one in the building by yourself.
Oh.
So when we did that originally at Boardman, and we had a couple of issues.
Yeah, we had to move it to the reception area too, because there was no one to like be near the door to see the door.
Right, so I would just suggest you try and do it somewhere where there may be people, general public area, just I would hate anybody be by themselves, just.
And another, just for, if staff wanna show up and have a conversation and they're uncomfortable coming into like a building, I think, because we had talked about maybe doing it before a regular board meeting and, having the hour before, but I think, if someone wants to come in and not be recognized that they're talking to a board member, I'd just, I think being alone in the building when there's contentious things happening is uncomfortable, so.
Or you're there by yourself.
Yeah.
For like an hour.
What's that?
Is the library?
Tattle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tattle might be,
Yeah, 'cause
that
they
could be a
park in
good
that.
solution.
Cause I was thinking Books A
I mean,
Million
it's all-
too.
Yeah, it's only one time a month and we might be able to reserve a room one time a month.
Yeah.
Another thought I had was the Grand Traverse Pie Company farther west on West Front Street, not the one that's down by State Theater, but the other
Oh, yeah.
Front Street, because parking is,
Yeah. it is.
more accessible there, more available. That might be worth exploring.
Yeah, so I think, I'm fine to try different, we can maintain it as it is, same hours and just change the location.
It does show Tattle's open till 8,
Mhm.
so if you would like, we could call over tomorrow to Tattle and see if we might be able to get a permanent spot, a room. We could do that if the board wanted to try a different location as at least.
Yeah.
We'd be happy to try and see if we can get that reserved.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And then if we can kind of see how that goes, and then we also talked maybe about alternating virtual, like some Zoom meetings to, people that can't show up for the meeting, so maybe we try in person at the library and hopefully it'll, get more people out, cause they can park easier and
Yeah.
maybe reevaluate after the first couple, 3 meetings or something.
Yeah, Dr.
Yeah, that'd be
Verwilliger,
great.
what are since you alternate between in-person and virtual for your superintendent monthly?
You do get a
Like-
different group of folks, you have some that struggle maybe to be able to get out of work or to get home, maybe they have childcare or, meal or whatever that is, so at least you have a venue every other month that they wanna be in person, but if they can't, it's just, it's a good mix that way.
Do you see consistently higher attendance for?
No, but I think I see different people that wouldn't do one or the other sometimes.
I think that's a good idea.
Maybe people not as techie, and then other times I have people that, are on the road, and maybe they work and travel, so it gives access either way.
Is the parking at Tattle pretty available
It is.
all the
Yeah,
It
time?
is.
I go there all the time and
Mhm.
usually
Well,
there's
we're
plenty of
encouraging
space.
reading,
Yeah.
so get a book on the way.
Alright,
Not bad.
so what about the vote, so it sounds like Tattle's the way to go that we want to go, what about the virtual option, what do we want?
This is a discussion.
This is, yeah,
We're kind of doing it now.
that, I guess, we couldn't technically approve it though, because then
Sure.
it would have been approved.
Okay.
So the discussion item will be approving,
Right.
yeah, but yeah. That's why we struggled.
I mean, I'd be amenable
I-
to trying out.
I think
for
we should do every other, I
Oh.
think that's it,
Okay,
Yeah, I do too.
just and see, and then we could see how it goes after
yeah,
June or
6
whatever,
months.
yeah.
so,
I'm for mixing it up if it's not working, so,
Yeah.
I love the library, and they're a partner of ours.
Mhm.
Yep.
And there's a really beautiful children's garden.
I knew you were gonna get that in about Lally.
Got to.
right, so assuming that is available, we can post it as provisional, approve it as provisional today, later. That's what we'll go with.
We'll try and get that set up, and if we're successful or not, we'll let the board know.
And then we'll just randomly assign, Ty, if you need to trade, it's, believe me, I'm the king of all traders, I traded out virtually everyone, last year, so. But you can just switch it with another board member. Okay, so that I think completes, is there any other scheduling questions?
One question, and that is, will we post the schedule for the Student Advisory Council? Kind of so we can plug it into calendars and
Because
things
board
like that.
board members will get
Yeah.
their rotations.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was a little bit more vague last year for me.
There's, whoever's attending as the rotating member has it on their calendar.
Okay.
Cause you remember, it's only, how many were there?
We do like 4 a year.
So technically, you'll get one every 2 years,
There you go.
so if you went last year, you
They
may,
were good.
it was very good, so. Yeah, and then we should start the rotations, like taking into effect what just happened, so,
We'll do.
okay. Any other assignments, representations or committees? Okay, then we'll officially approve that in discussion as well, but so moving on now, sorry to deepen the agenda, but public comment, do we have public comment? Okay, the board has set aside this time for public comment, and individuals addressing the board should have one opportunity to speak, limited to 3 minutes. Individuals should not make personal attacks unrelated to actions affecting the school system, and we strongly encourage common courtesy and constructive feedback. Detailed rules and procedures, including a complaint process, are outlined in Board Policy 2504. Stacey?
First speaker is Megan Quigley.
Good evening, my name is Megan Quigley. I was born and raised here in TC. I'm speaking tonight as a concerned parent and taxpayer in this district. I was very troubled to hear an employee from Planned Parenthood would be co-chair this week approving sex education curriculum for our minor children in school. What concerns me most is the agenda that's being pushed upon them. When I read through some of the material, I wonder how sex ed for social change, inclusivity, and catering to less than 1% of the population is helping our kids. I wonder how educating our kids about LGBTQ or DEIJ is improving them academically. Because when I looked at the stats, I see Central High School per Principal Berger in an October 2024 letter stating that last year, 48% of students are proficient in math and 47% in both math and English. And West isn't doing any better. Per Principal Esper in September 2024 letter, stated that 42% are proficient in math and 41 in both math and English. That's 574 kids out of around 1,400 that are meeting state standards. This is insane and scary to me. What's even more startling is the percentage of parents that attend parent-teacher conferences, which is around like 40% for Central and astonishing 10% at West. TC Central is ranked 46 in Michigan, West 92. Shockingly, TC High School is 332 with a graduation rate of 22%. So again, I ask myself how an employee from Planned Parenthood, which clearly pushes a specific one view agenda, would be beneficial to our children that we were obviously feeling big time. Why are we even adding more to the sex ed curriculum? Reproduction and sex haven't changed. Most minor children do not relate nor identify as such. In fact, according to Michigan.gov, June 1st, 2023, there are 3,950 minor children ages 13 to 17 who identify as LGBTQ. That's 0.03 of the Michigan population. So in Traverse City, that percentage would be almost non-existent. Yet for some reason, a handful of adults keep implementing the sex ed curriculum that gives preferential treatment to a population that barely exists, while the rest of our kids suffer and get indoctrinated. Sex education in this case is just a euphemism for radical gender ideology as well as inappropriate and misguided information. Things that this board supports, such as CCAPS, appears to be hostile towards abstinence programs and religion. It also strongly discourages any anti-abortion propaganda, which Planned Parenthood also emphasizes. If you're going to include LGBTQ information, then you should include all of it, such as the suicide rate amongst this population, which is 4 to 5 times higher than that of our kids. It also, according to the APA and DSM, gender dysphoria is a mental disorder, yet you keep wanting to push this in a public taxpayer-funded school. Stop trying to normalize it because our kids are not doing better. Our kids don't need affirming sex education. They need to improve on their test scores and academic abilities. And stop talking and implementing things that aren't contributing to our kids' academic excellence. And we, the taxpayers, are not going to fund pet projects that have absolutely zero relevance in the learning arena. My family personally pays over $16,000 to TCAPS every year. The only concern that we should have as a community is what we're going to do to change.
For public comments. Thank you.
Next speaker is Bill Wiesner.
Bill Wiesner, Traverse City. Dittos to what she just said. And this is a letter that I sent out to 2,000 people. You folks got it too, I presume. I'm just going to read it, and it's Dear TCAPS, Board of Education and Admin, and all Leelanau County schools, boards of education and admins, plus forwarded to over 2,000 total. Now it's over 4,000. Leelanau County employees and TCAPS in Leelanau County, Northwest Ed, and Northern Michigan educators in general, friends and pastor friends and area leaders, and to all 148 Michigan legislators, the House and Senate in Michigan, plus to every American citizen who is concerned about the sexual grooming of children. I'm forwarding Dr. Scott Lively's My Christmas Present to You offer for a free pre-publication PDF copy of his new book entitled Nazi Germany's Dirtiest Secrets and Why They Matter to TCAPS Today, or America Today. I am encouraging you all to take advantage of this great opportunity and download it immediately for free. So that's the opportunity. You can download it and then pass it on to your friends and hope that it can strengthen the anti-groomer movement and rescue Americans' children from the clutches of the LGBTs. Download it up until I said December 21st, 2025. It will be obviously January 21st, 2025, a week from tomorrow, next Tuesday. I attached a copy of My Christmas Present to You, promotional business cards. That's what I just gave to you and to some of the people here. And on there gives you the address scottlively.store, I think it is. And you can get your free copy. So, and here's some pictures from the book. This is the front cover right here. That's the front cover. Nazi Germany's Dirtiest Secrets. Here's the back cover. It's no longer a secret. And here's a close-up of the back cover. So this is what was in Hitler's Germany, and it was carried over into America on the back cover. I encourage you very much to go to the website, get the free download, that's basically it. Check it out, scottlively.store, and and there's 500 books in the library
Thank you, Mr.
promoting
Weezer. Your time's up.
homosexuality. Let's get this one at least
you,
on the
Mr.
other
Weezer.
side. Thank you.
Next speaker is Nicole Hooper.
Evening, everybody. Nice to see you again. It's been a while. I would actually like to piggyback off of what Megan Quigley and she addressed regarding having the employee from Planned Parenthood on the Sex Ed Advisory Board Committee. I know you've already made your decision and this is just a formality, but stressing that it is not appropriate for an employee of an organization such as this to have influence on our youth and our schools. Secondly, it's not appropriate to teach sexuality diversity to our youth. Since this is the direction you're taking, there should be equal representation, such as Thrive Medical Clinic. Not sure if that clinic has come across your emails or any communications, but it would be nice to have all sides represented. And then for those tuning in online or sitting in here today, you may think since you don't have kids in the school system that your comment falls on deaf ears and doesn't make a difference. But I would like to remind everybody, you pay taxes, therefore you do have a say. And your opinion does matter, and I encourage you to come to the board meetings or email the board with your comments and suggestions and feelings. Thank you so much.
That's the last speaker.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to superintendent's report, Dr. Van Wen.
Okay, legislatively, we are in a new legislative year. We have now, we have a Speaker of the House, Matt Hall, from the Richland area near Kalamazoo. Is the Speaker. The Republicans have taken majority in the Michigan House of Representatives by, I believe, a 4-vote margin. And we're trying to still figure out, the chairs have not been named yet to education committees or appropriations, any of those for that matter. I did have the chance to talk to Representative John Roth today about some of that, and so he's thinking probably by the end of the month they will have all the chairs and committee assignments in place, and so really that's kind of at a hold. Interestingly enough, very unique, the governor has announced that she's going to propose her executive budget towards the third week, I believe, of January, before the State of the State address. That's the first time I've ever seen the budget released before the State of the State address. It's always, forever and ever as I remember, it's always been the State of the State address first. So that'll be interesting. Consensus Revenue Conference was on Monday. It's showing about $1 billion, well over $1 billion between general fund and school aid fund. They're saying right now that school aid fund is sitting at about $350 to $400 million in excess of what they originally estimated, which is good news, as well as a good amount still left over from last year. So we're hopeful that that means some decent news as we go into the school aid. There's a lot of things on the table though. Road funding is a major question, and the issue with road funding is that that is partially funded by sales tax dollars, and part of that money goes to schools when the gas tax happens. The speaker, the newly elected speaker, has given his thoughts. He wants to see all of the money from the gas tax go to roads, and so there would have to be a replacement for that money for schools, and that has not been identified of what that is. It was kind of like, oh, well, we'll find it. And when you have a temporary source that can dry up, that could mean a catastrophe for schools. So it'll be interesting to see as that work goes on. You know, I will remind the board, the last time we had divided government, the state's fiscal year is not the same as ours. It goes October 1st to the end of September. So there is, if history repeats itself, we saw that we did not have budgets until 1, 2 in the morning on October 1st, 3 weeks after school starts. And you might remember we have to adopt a budget by law by July 1. So we very well may have to guess on a budget that we wait, a few months before we'll actually even know what it is. So that's a tough part that is a very good likelihood, but hopefully they're able to somehow come to an agreement before the July 1 deadline that they've imposed in the past year under Governor Snyder and Governor Whitmer. So we'll just have to see where that lands. Any questions on that at all?
Any news from the Senate?
The Senate is still democratically controlled. There were no changes, there were no senators up, so your committees, all those assignments, all the same. There were a couple that left the Senate, one from Midland specifically, and that seat it will have to be put up for special election. And so that could possibly put a tie into the Senate, if that were to flip to a Republican seat, but as of right now, the governor and the Senate are democratically controlled.
Well, what I was thinking was if there are no major political changes within the House or the Senate.
Yeah.
Then do they have their sense of priorities and are they talking about those?
And they will and do, they've already kind of put a couple of big items, non-educated, education-related tipped wage is a major one right now. That's out there. So that, and I think that, road package is even on their mind too. I think, there's a couple there. Yeah, economic development. So it'll be in the end.
Education is not high.
No, it's not right now. But, it just, the first two bills were dropped, in both chamber the other day. So it's very ceremonial almost. So we won't know until right now, they don't have a counterpart in the House to talk to. They don't have a chair in education, even appropriations for that matter. So it's going to be a while and it'll start to emerge what those are. But even MASB right now has not come out with their priorities yet. That is something I had the chance to talk to Jennifer Smith, their lead lobbyist. And so that'll start to be formed here over the next month. Obviously, the governor's is going to get out there real fast to kind of put that card out there. So we'll see what reactions are. We'll see, we've had the chance already to begin talking to our local legislators. Three key things for us, our transportation categorical is huge. It's not funded. We had the 3 years of funding temporarily. It's not guaranteed next year, and that's huge for us. The second is mental health and school safety funds. Again, we had half of it last year than what we had the year before. And the third is an increase in the foundation grant. Again, we had no increase in the foundation grant last year. To caveat that, we did get some support on the retirement side, but we did not move that formula for our foundation, as it has almost 2x every year, 2 times what the higher funded districts were getting. So we'll see where that goes. That's the conversation that I've had with our local legislators. I think they're very receptive to those ideas in both caucuses, but we'll just have to see what's the speaker's agenda and where does it all land.
Well, it'll be very interesting to see if the magic school bus, the electric bus, helps in your costs in transportation.
Yeah, we'll see. So the only other thing is there is one key bill that's sitting out there. Interestingly enough, there were 6 bills that were in the House of Representatives that were passed that were not sent over to the governor by the clerk. And now the new speaker has his own clerk. And right now he's refusing to send them to the governor. And one of them is a health care bill for public employees that changes the cap and the 80% rule that we have. And so right now the speaker has said he's just going to hold on to that, get some legal opinions on what he has to do or doesn't have to do. It's unprecedented, never happened where they kind of didn't finish their work before they left. And there's 6 bills sitting out there. And he has just decided, I'm not going to send those to the governor. And we don't know what's going to happen. So that definitely has an impact for us and our employees. So we're just going to keep an eye on where that goes. And I would not be surprised to see it end in a lawsuit. And we'll see, but we'll keep you updated on that as far as that goes as well.
Dr. Wagner, was one of those the expansion of healthcare coverage to families from individuals?
But the part of it, there's some pieces in there. Right now, the bill as it's read, does stay, with some parameters of what you have. Christine, you might be able to add to that.
If you're speaking of the one that directly relates to our district public schools, really what it does is it increases the cap and it sets a new floor that didn't used to exist. So it's really not about expanding opportunities, it's about cost and the share between employee and employer.
There were different languages and things being done at the last minute. That's where it landed, but again, it's sitting there, not sent to the governor, and I don't know that it's going to. We'll see.
Would it mean the employer would have to make up the difference? That's what it is.
That is correct. And so that's pretty much it for legislative, and it's gonna start going fast. District highlights. TCAPS received 250 gun safety locks to distribute to parents from the Michigan State Police and their Community Services Division. Any TCAPS parent is welcome to stop by the main office between 8 and 3 p.m. Of West Senior High School and Central High School, and the superintendent's office between 9 and 4 here at the Glenn Loomis Administration Building to receive a free gun lock. Gun lock installation instructions in both English and Spanish are included and are also available on Project Safe, Child Safe website. And again, those are first come, first serve, and appreciate that grant. Also, Central High School's Alpine Ski. Congratulations to our girls Alpine Ski team who won the Petoskey Harbor Invitational. Top 10 finishers include Quinn Gerber, Aaron Hale, Kellen Kundry, Elise Bozung, Avery Taggart, Rocco Elkins, Cooper Gerber, Dilla Ramoy, Trevor Suttle as well. So congratulations. Erica, any update for West High School?
West girls took second and West boys took first. Central boys took second.
Excellent.
No, I'm sorry, Central boys took third, actually. They had some crashes, some DNF, so.
All right, so ski season is well on its way. Snow conditions are good and getting better as we get through the weekend by the looks of it here. I have also some updates. I'm going to include and talk more in the school safety update with some AEDs. I know we had some board members. Josie had some questions, stuff that I want to get to. But before that, I do have a tenure item that I wanted Connie to go over, and then an update on Safe Route to Schools, which is after that.
Yes, just please join me in congratulating teacher Barbara Anderson for successfully completing her probationary period as required by the state. And as of Wednesday, she will have officially acquired tenure with TCAPS. So we congratulate her for that achievement.
Thank you. Congratulations again. So we've had a lot of questions. We are working right now on a Safe Route to Schools grant with the crossing on Frankie Road. It is actually a requirement under the Safe Route to Schools grant. We actually have to have that as a part of a project for West Middle School. The trail does go around by Meyer all the way up to West Middle School to the Y and even out. It'll eventually connect to West High School, a part of our work out there. But Ginger has been actively working on that Safe Route to Schools grant. So I've asked her to give an update of what we've done so far, where that's at, and where that'll move forward. So, Ginger.
Sure. So as you know, the Safe Routes to School grant is a very complex and multi-layered grant program. So we have had some in-person meetings with the Michigan Fitness Foundation, who oversee that grant program. And they pretty much have an individual that's assigned to the case for each school that is applying for this grant, which has been very helpful. So in addition to working one-on-one with that, we have began the process of working directly with West Middle School to do the data portion of the grant. And what it is each layer of this grant requires an approval process in order to go on to the next phase. So at this point, what we are doing is we are in the phase yet of collecting data. So we have had surveys go out to West Middle School students, and we will continue to keep pushing out that survey At West Middle School, they do have time on Fridays during their advisory where they do things such as surveys. So it'll just remain on that docket for a couple more rounds to ensure that all students who would like to give their input can do so. And in addition to that, the questions include things like, how do you go to school? Do you ride in a bus, in your parents' car? Do you walk, ride a bike, whatever? We also have to do just in-classroom tallies, and that is done 3 consecutive days in a row. And I do not believe those are complete yet because of the fact that it generally will line up with the next part of our phase, which is the audit portion. So we also have sent out a message about a month ago to all parents of students who attend West Middle School. And the questions were very similar. How do you take your children to school? And would you consider anything different if opportunities with better paths existed, lighting, things of that nature? So we do have quite a few number of the parent surveys that were returned. We are required to have a 20% response rate, and the responses, I asked for an update for the meeting tonight, and it looks like we're currently at 18%. So we're just a few surveys shy of meeting that requirement, so we'll quickly be able to complete that one. After the surveys, we'll move on to the audit portion, and what the audit portion does is we utilize volunteers. We need to do counts before and after school on pedestrian traffic, bike traffic, in different areas that would make up that corridor of Frankie Road, Silver Lake, Buffalo Trail area. All of those areas that you see traffic coming in and out of at West Middle School. So for what we also will have to do for that is take a mapping process and identify every single household for students who do attend West Middle School. So that portion has also been submitted, so we are waiting on that. We do remain on target completely with all of the pre-app phase of this timeline. So far, everything has gone smoothly as we had hoped, and basically we will continue to work soon. Once we receive that go ahead to the next phase, we will get back together with all of our collaborators, including the Grand Traverse Road Commission, State Police, and all those who have volunteered to be part of the Safe Routes to School team. We will then get together to complete an action plan, and then after that is when we do that actual final request for funding. Major grants through Safe Routes to School do provide $300,000 for infrastructure. There is also the opportunity to have an additional $15,000 for any type of possible programming that could exist along with that initiative, which would be more or less the soft work that goes behind promoting the use of trails and biking and walking and things of that nature. The Safe Routes to School team is very clear that the general timeline for this process to receive approval from the work we began generally is a 2-year process. So we're a solid ways in, and we'll continue to work forward to do what we can do to improve that area for all the students. Other questions?
How come Montessori is not? Montessori
So you
school's
need
not
to,
part of it?
the school needs to be a certain age in order to qualify for a Safe Routes to School grant, and therefore it's too
The age of
new.
the building or the age of?
Correct.
Okay, so not the
I believe it
grades.
was 5 years, at least 5 years old, I think is what it was. 5 or 7, I don't remember which.
And so Montessori's way too young.
Correct.
But given the 2-year process, it's gonna be nudging that 5-year period. It's what, a year
But
and
you
a
would
half?
have to
2
start
years?
earlier, it's 5 years from when you start, so.
Oh, boy.
But that, it qualifies as being right there, so it's that, we would have improvements on that crossing. The biggest part, the part that is, discussed when we met with the road commission, Garfield Township, is the Meyer side of the road. That's probably the biggest part that, if you go there and look at the topography, it's a very drop off. So a concrete pad has to be poured with some ADA access. With the lights and all that, just for that piece of it is probably around $100,000. I did have a question from somebody is, well, do you have to wait for this grant? Could you use bond dollars? And so I did get the chance to talk with Chris Imarino from Troon, who's a specialist on bond dollars. We do not own that property. We can only use bond dollars on property we own. Okay, so that couldn't be used at all on that side of the road. Some on our side of the road, some of that element could, but most of that, all that work is on the Meyer side. We have met with Meyer twice, along with Garfield Township and the Road Commission. Meyer has expressed interest, they would be a part of this, but they would not put anything in writing yet. They would only be a part of the process. And so going through that, I think goodwill is there. Scott had the chance to talk to their lawyers as well. Had a personal connections with some and really was able to get the ball rolling for us to have some of those more conversations with their legal team in Grand Rapids. But you know, that's the big piece that would be a part of this, because for kids to get to the apartments and stuff, for instance, on Division to get to West Middle School, go across that, go the Buffalo Trail right there up to.
Do we have, I mean, so we've just went through this with West Middle in 2019. Do we have, and I know those kids live in Fitzview and Bay Hill, and a lot of that data was there. We did do the audits, and I know they're probably saying we can't use that now, but 2 years is rough. I mean, 2 years, especially after I've been hearing concerns for the past year. And now we're saying, well, we're gonna put a crosswalk in, which I think now says like, yes, parents are gonna park there and walk across. So, I mean, I know we're out of options, but I'm not thrilled about 2 years.
And I will tell you that the state police actually has said they recommend increasing the speed limit on that road.
Right, and I know they're tied. I understand school zone speed and crosswalks are tied together, but I don't know what the solution is, but considering what happened, I'm just not comfortable with 2 years.
I understand. And the road commission, we did meet. I think a part, they said that they would be willing to talk to the state police and ask for a reconsideration. State police said when they did a study that there were only 3 kids that they found walking or biking to school during that time of that study. We didn't think that was right. But we definitely are gonna try and continue to advocate. Talk to the road commission. I think there's some new leadership in the road commission. I think they're willing to do some of that. They are planning on redoing Frankie Road, not this summer, but the following summer. So we've had the chance to walk. We would like to see even some sidewalks maybe on the other side of the road in that element. But, all I would say is if there is another source for funding out there, that I'd be more than happy to talk to anybody and willing to, again, we'd have to take that to Meyer. It is Meyer's property. Meyer has to give that okay from that standpoint to do. But that would be the biggest holdup from that standpoint. And then you do have the financial component of a crossing guard.
And I think that Maya were pretty concerned about like making sure they had the road commission and state police recommendations too. So I don't know even if we could use bond dollars, even if it would make a difference, because I think that everyone needs that process, whether we like it or not, the process to go through. Because I know, just for your reference, Ty, that there was a lot when we first tried. Not only did we get knocked back, but they recommended increasing the speed limit, and there wasn't a great working relationship. So I think we've reset that part.
Is there, so the 18% response rate, Ginger, is there any way that we can target those families that are more likely to be walking or that we know walk? To try to get more of that response rate up so we can make sure to at least hit that?
Well, we will certainly meet the requirement. We didn't know with our first attempt what rate we were at.
Okay.
And so we just received that parent number today. So we will simply just include in the West Middle School newsletter a secondary plea for their parents to provide that data, and it won't take very many names to fill up that requirement.
Okay. When did you say that survey was launched?
We did that right around Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Isn't that also off Frankie Road where the big trucks come into Beckmeyer?
It is, you know, we had a lot of debate around that originally. The original design of Montessori had a second exit, but because of that, the road commission denied it. Because, and they've said that it has to be directly across. You might remember, we had this conversation a year or so ago about that it's not directly across from that. And so one time Meyer considered closing it. If they'd have closed it, we'd have been able to put a second exit there, but they didn't. They put speed bumps, left that gate open. That does not allow us to be able to have that second
Because they need that
exit.
access.
Yep.
And it's timing, you know, it's not busy all day. It's beginning and end of school. And it's Montessori.
And just to be clear, the Meyer crossing is not something that is necessarily recommended by the school.
Right,
It's
you
just
know,
that
we do have parking in the back. If you go right where the track building is, there's parking right there. The Buffalo Trail runs right next to it. When I go there, I know, Dan, we mentioned this yesterday, I park right there. The Buffalo Trail's right there. I'm able to take it right around by the playground, come in right around the building and get in. So there is an ability to park there that's safer in that element, but a lot of people wanna be quick and fast and try and do the Meyer and you know, Meyer does still have some liability concerns, but for the good of the cause, they were willing to be a part of the conversation and deeply, but they wanted that thorough process completed from that standpoint.
Maybe the fitness nutrition committee needs to encourage people to do that little walk.
And again, I know that Tracy and Montessori, they've communicated that, you know, that place to park and that element. I think, you know, that when it's maybe track season, it gets a little busy, but beyond that, it's a pretty open lot right there to be able to park in. And we did put lighting there, so there's lighting to be able to be, so if it is dark in the morning or late evening, there are floodlight type lights right there, right, just right next to the Buffalo Trail. And we do maintain that in the wintertime. We do plow it and we do salt that as well.
About how far is it, distance-wise? Like 50 feet between where the parking lot is and the nearest entrance to the building?
I think
40 yards.
40 yards?
I just walk it at 4:30.
Geez, not even half a football field.
Yeah. Not
And
far.
it's an incline?
It is, a little bit, not bad, but a little bit.
Well, and I mentioned this to John earlier, you know, before we had park and stroll, so a lot of our in-town, through the programming piece, the educational encouragement piece, and if education and encouragement can be a solution to this, you know, park and stroll and messaging that to families, obviously we can't make them do anything, but it did seem to work. Like we had a park and stroll at Eastern from the Civic Center, we had park and stroll from you know, Thurlby to Central Grade to get the kids the wiggles out before, that was the message, to get the wiggles out before class. So those used to be up on all individual school websites too. I believe they've been taken down since. So anyways, if infrastructure is gonna take 2 years, maybe there's some things that keep families safe between.
We should do some little things like calorie counts. Things like, I mean, there's some
Well, there's lots of
things you
science
could do
between
that-
just moving before class. I mean, even if it's just 40 yards, I mean, that can help. So, but again, I think we provide those as options to families. You know, here's options, car line's an option, the bus is you know, an option, but also this park and stroll can also be an option.
Mhm.
2017, I was just looking at this, 2017, we did the walk and bike audit at West Middle.
Any other questions on any of that? Okay, so for recognition, I would like to express my sincere gratitude and appreciation for our Board of Education and the tireless work that you do in your dedication to the students and families of Traverse City Area Public Schools. January is Board Appreciation Month, a time to recognize the invaluable contributions of individuals who serve our local school boards. You volunteer countless hours to relentlessly support all students in achieving their full potential by maximizing individual excellence and success. These are not easy tasks. Your decisions often involve difficult choices and require careful consideration of diverse perspectives. You face challenges with grace and professionalism, always prioritizing the needs of our community. We know that your work can be demanding with long hours and frequent meetings, yet you consistently operate with honesty, transparency, and fairness. You demonstrate a strong commitment to the TCAPS vision, mission, and values as our board is defined in the Compass Strategic Plan. Thank you for your unwavering support of our students, teachers, and staff. Your service makes a real difference in the lives of the young people in our community. So as a token of our appreciation, we have a little notebook there with your name on it. You may remember that is a office supply component, so we're able to provide office supplies. So again, we appreciate everything you guys do, the time you put in. The pay is horrible, which is nothing, by the way.
No pay.
Right, no pay.
This is the pay, this is the pay up front.
It's tax-free, it's tax-free.
And you know, again, hours and evenings out from your families and work, and we just appreciate everything you guys do, and thank you for all your support.
Thank you.
And I love the cards from the kids.
Yeah, so you also are from Blair Elementary School.
Yeah.
Go Bobcats, so you have some cards there that we shared with you to show their appreciation, and so hopefully you get a chance to get some laughs and enjoy and be able to see the fruits of what you do to help kids each and every day. And that is all for my superintendent's report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you to Blair Elementary.
Yeah.
I read every single one before the meeting started. They're adorable.
Yeah.
They are. Somebody mentioned taco tickets and I'm like, oh my god.
There you go.
Adorable.
Okay, moving on to board committee reports and discussions. Just first, if I have to get up, I'm having a throat issue, and I just FYI, if I come and go, I will standing. Just put Erica now as vice president and standing if I have to leave. Board committee report. First up is curriculum committee by trustee Erica Moore.
Perfect, so I have a bunch to report out tonight, so I will try to be as concise as I can. So if you have any questions or I'm moving too fast, just please don't hesitate to stop me. So our curriculum committee meeting was held on January 7th. We called the meeting to order at 8:32. There was no public comment. We moved right into procedural items. The draft committee meeting minutes remain as posted, no changes. We reviewed the 2024-25 TCAPS district course catalog updates. Jessie Houghton, who is our Chief Academic Officer for secondary, reported on the updates for the 24-25 course catalog. We also had some updates for the 25-26 district course catalog, which will start taking place this winter. Both of these items were moved to the consent calendar tonight. We then had a recommendation from Brittany Kay, the Director of Curriculum and Instruction, regarding the Sex Ed Advisory Board, which we will discuss later in the meeting. Again, this is a 2-year term, and so that was on consent but pulled off for discussion tonight. Then we had a field trip request. So this it's a 10th grade advanced art photojournalism students traveling to Peru. This is March 21st and 29th of 2026. This has already been approved, but West Senior High wants to add a few of Central High School, like 4 to 5 students. In addition, so we're just asking for that to be approved. Again, this was added to the consent calendar. We then moved on to informational items, and we had our learning series and went through some curriculum updates. So the first update is regarding elementary, ELA, and math. So Ms. Brittany Kay provided an overview of how the district provides high-quality ELA instruction. She highlighted the adoption of CKLA during the 2024 school year, that there have been some classrooms piloting the early adopters in JK through 5 classrooms. And all JK through 5 classrooms district-wide will be implemented by the 2025-26 school year. Then Mr. Dan Teisworth provided an overview of the elementary math curriculum, math expressions. This school year, K-5 staff calibration is taking place on understanding essential instructional practices and meaningful fact fluency practice. So next school year, there will be some changes to math expressions. It's actually just the publisher. Everything else is pretty much staying the same. It's basically like a new a new brand, that's right. So from Houghton, Mifflin, Harcourt, it will now be Heinemann. And then we moved on to secondary and had coursework review. So Ms. Houghton reported there will be no new secondary curriculum introduced in the coming school year, but wanted to provide an overview of the grade level course review process that the curriculum team started this year. So this, we had Marissa Vanderzee, who is the teacher librarian at Central High School came in. She's the district curriculum specialist for grades 6 through 12 ELA. So Ms. Vanderzee explained the district's course review process where teachers with history of teaching the courses come together on site to bring ideas, learning, and questions back to other teachers. So this is the first time, for example, they're taking like the history teachers of the same grade and bringing them together to talk about, you know, what is the west side doing, what is the central side doing, and how we can work together through that process. So really great, excited to kind of see what they will, you know, embrace as we move forward in this new process. And again, this is, you know, they talk about their observations, instructional rounds, and meetings, and then review professional development, which encompasses external and internal staff learnings. And Mrs. Vanderzee added that these teachers are really looking forward to next year's review. So the process has been really great. The next item on the agenda was Martin Luther King Day, reviewing lessons and materials. So it is a half day of school, which is Monday, January 20th, and Miss Brittany Kay reported that some different grade level rollouts regarding Dr. Martin Luther King and a few books that are being recommended with some learning. So that was great. And then we just had our celebrations and successes. So I'll try to roll through these quickly. So robotics teams have both been doing competitions. Model UN teams at Central and West have been underway. Central Grade School did a toy drive for Traverse City Fire Department. West Middle School had a reenactment of the pivotal points of framing the Constitution. Danny Gorley's work, she's a one-on-one aide at Long Lake. They just wanted to recognize her going above and beyond. English language learners had an annual family potluck for students and their families. I believe this was at Traverse Heights.
It was at Central High.
Oh, Central High, okay. West Senior High hosting the first ever girls wrestling tournament, which is pretty cool. Cortade classrooms had 100% participation in Computer Science Week, and Cortade teachers Ben Boyce and Tracy Partman in regards to leading that school's successful Creative Explorers program. There were lots of amazing music performances throughout the month of December. Hopefully you guys all got to go see some. And then Central High School's 11th grade students who visited Northwest Michigan Works as part of their talent tours, where students got to learn aspects of different careers. West does something very similar. Other than that, we adjourned at 9:27, and our next curriculum committee meeting with a new curriculum committee will be January 28th at 8:30 a.m.
Yep, next, the next report out is Finance and Operations by Trustee Boundary.
Okay, so we held our Board Finance and Operations Committee meeting on Thursday, January 9th. We convened at 8:15 a.m. There were no public comments. We approved the minutes from October 31st. And then we briefly discussed the board organizational meeting items that are on consent today. Those are the designation of depositories, investment of funds, and signatures required for school district accounts, along with the resolution to authorize summer property tax collection in 2026. We always do these a year ahead, so again, those are on consent tonight. We also talked about and thanked the Mahogany Foundation for a $10,000 grant to the Student Support Network. That will be under discussion later at the request of a board member. And then we had under our bid services and purchases portion of the agenda, we reviewed the administration's request to approve the purchase of a robotic field painter, not to be confused with a robotics field painter, but this is basically just to line all of our courts and fields for soccer, basketball, baseball.
Not basketball.
Sorry, not basketball.
Football.
No, okay, no
Lacrosse.
basketball,
Soccer.
no basketball, okay.
Only
Okay,
field.
all right.
Yeah.
Field.
All the fields, okay, lacrosse, you name it. So what we learned was that the district, has been using staff members, and this takes basically up to 6 hours to line a field. And so this turf tank robot will take substantially less time. So we approved putting it on the consent agenda, an amount not to exceed $64,000, and this will be funded from 2024 capital bond fund. So it's one of our very first uses of our newly passed bond. It does come with a 6-year warranty and training and service 2 times a year. Incidentally, this is also the same turf field paint that T-Base has been using for their soccer fields for the last year. Moving on to capital projects, we got an update from Paul Twing on the Central High School and West Senior High Innovation and Manufacturing Centers, AKA STEM Labs, which are due to be opened for student use the last week of January. There are a couple of boxes that need to be checked before then. Furniture will be delivered. There will be a fire inspection to issue an occupancy permit, but the aim is to open the last week of January for student use. And finally, Christine Thomas Hill gave us a finance update. So basically a heads up to the board that our original budget for this year, 2024 to 25, which we originally thought would have a shortfall of $3 million. Now the administration is thinking that could be less, to the tune of $2 million. So our first budget amendment will come through the finance committee and the board in February. How do we get this great reduction? Even though there haven't been supplementals, you might wonder. Basically, this came from, in part, the sale of Bertha Voss, which was $516,000. That closed on January 3rd. There were also some carryover funds from last year, delayed expenditures from last year, and finally a $1.2 million grant that is used for the curriculum purchase of CKLA that Trustee Moore just mentioned. So instead of using curriculum dollars that came out of a special grant. Moving on to looking to next year, Ms. Thomas Hill just noted that at the moment the administration is looking at potential budget reductions for next year based on the projections that Dr. Van Wagner has alluded to as well. There may be decreased funding in certain categoricals, specifically transportation, safety, security, and mental health, as well as at-risk funding based on a new state formula for allocating dollars. We also possibly could have a decline in student enrollment next year. And finally, of course, there's always that question for the legislature of how much is that increase in the per pupil foundation going to be? And administration has estimated that we need roughly a $500 increase per pupil next year to balance the books. So that's all in flux to be determined, but just, everyone needs to be prepared. And then finally, Christine Thomas Hill just gave us a preview of the many expenditures from the 2024 bond that will be up in the next couple of months. I won't go further out than the next 2 months, but I did total it. It's nearly $22 million coming through finance and the full board. The big ticket items are West Senior High's circulation, so parking and driving. So hopefully we've learned a lot of lessons on that over the years. And then single-use bathroom renovations, all that collectively will be $8 million estimated. Traverse Heights is going to have a classroom and cafeteria addition. That's estimated to be $4.5 million. Sabin, former elementary school, that the renovations there to the tune of $5 million. the ELA elementary curriculum adoption that Erica talked about, $1.2 million from a grant. School buses, 1 million, Saban facility storage, 1 million, and then minor items are new Chromebooks for students to the tune of 800,000, lockers at Blair and Cortate elementary schools, 150,000, permanent music classroom dividers in a couple of elementary school, or all elementary schools, excuse me, $50,000 total, and then finally K through 8 window shades to the tune of $50,000. And then we adjourned in less than 45 minutes, and our next Board Finance and Operations Committee meeting will be Thursday, January 30th at 8:15 a.m. in this building.
Alright, thank you. Board Executive Committee, report out by Erica Moore.
So Board Executive Committee was Thursday, January 9th. We called the meeting to order at 4:01. No public comment. Procedural items, the minutes remain as posted, the draft committee meeting minutes. And then a lot of things that are on the agenda tonight, obviously. Board policy updates, standards of practice, Blair Housing Project. We did our agenda review for the January 13th tonight organizational meeting and January 27th study session. Then we went on into informational items. Human resources, Connie Taylor had an update regarding staffing. You're not giving that update tonight, are you? No. Okay, so real quickly, she just had shared that there's a number of coaching job opportunities posted, as well as open positions in food service and various full-time and part-time aid positions. To help with budget projections, the district has extended the retirement early notification incentive from December 20th, 24 to February 1st, 2025, to allow maybe for some more people that want to put in for their retirements and have that incentive. At this time, the district has received 27 confirmed retirements or resignations from the TCEA. And one other item is that we threw out there that Central Grade is looking for volunteers to coach their elementary basketball program. They have 19 elementary students that are anxiously awaiting to play basketball, but they really need a volunteer basketball coach at Central Grade School. So, and then from there, we had a communications update from Ginger Smith. Ginger Smith shared that enrollment information sessions are taking place during the month of February for junior kindergarten and kindergarten, 5th grade into 6th grade, and 8th grade into 9th grade. The dates and information are posted on the district website. Other than that, Dr. Van Wagner gave us an update on safe routes to school, which we just talked a little bit about. And the next board exec is scheduled for January 30th at 4 p.m. and we adjourn the meeting at just about 4:57. And that was it.
All right, thank you. Next report out is Superintendent Board of Education Advisory Committee, reporting out again by Erica Moore.
This is me. So this was one of my big things when I joined the board 6 years ago, was to have student voice at the table. So through rotation, I actually got to finally sit in on this advisory council, which was, God, I don't even remember the date of this, December 17th. So it was great, right before the holidays, so probably not as big of a percentage of kids there, but I do appreciate the kids that were there. Marianne Swank, who's with Northwest Ed, actually facilitated, and she did a fantastic job facilitating. So we had a welcome and inclusion time, I guess. And then had a reflection on the grading practices, which was reviewed from the last meeting, October 15th. And then we went into student voice, so broke up into groups of 3 or 4 and talked about academic integrity and artificial intelligence. So it was interesting to hear the kids talk about what admin should know and why is this important. So they reported out on some of that artificial intelligence that they're seeing in the schools. And then we spent the rest of the meeting really planning for upcoming meeting topics. So Marianne did a really great job. Started with 16 different ideas from the kids as to what they thought was important, and then we narrowed it down to the top six items that the majority of those kids felt like would be good topics. So just a really good job for these kids expressing what their peers are saying at their schools. And really that was it. So the next District Student Advisory Council is February 18th at 3:45 here at Glen Loomis. And so I don't think we know who is attending the next one yet. And that's okay.
I think it's Holly. Is it you? Yeah. I can.
Yeah. So that was it.
Okay.
Good stuff. And I really appreciated the focus because it was December 17th. And, I think we have a day or two left before break. So yeah, it was great.
And I just wanna say, I didn't know that this was your brainchild. But I, for those of you who might not have remembered this, a couple of years ago when I went to an MASB annual leadership conference, I attended a session where they were talking about trying to formulate one of these councils.
From Dearborn.
And people were struggling to get students involved, and I piped up and said, we've just started one and we've got 25 to 30 kids. And they're like, how did you do that?
Gosh, and I think we have 50, I think there's like 52
Yeah, I think it's
members.
growing.
Yeah.
Right now, we have a lot in sport, we have a lot in sports and band right now.
So they can't all come.
Right, but we
Yeah.
still had a good, considering almost end of school, we still had 20,
And they were
26.
super focused and.
But compared to
great.
having one student at the board table, which is something some districts have done, to have one student rep, we really get a lot more input.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate it. Thank you
Yeah.
both for starting it.
Yeah, ironic that I was the last board member to actually witness and participate.
Yeah,
It's okay,
not
that's
fair.
okay, it's all good.
Okay, next up is nutrition and fitness. To report out, so I don't know if you wanna if you have
Yeah,
a.
Beth and I are gonna kind of
strategy.
tag
Okay.
team. So basically, we met on January 9th, and we had a discussion about getting a district license for professional development for PE. So there was a peanut grant that actually allows for this professional development. Each license costs $375, so we were discussing from an elementary perspective, how do we do this? Do we do, every PE teacher at elementary? So just went through.
Each school.
Yeah, exactly. As you know, the PE curriculum was just recently purchased. Before there was no curriculum. The PE instructors were creating the curriculum themselves. So there's also some extensions with that curriculum that are available. And so those cost extra. And so there was a discussion around possibly having PTOs fund these extensions that our PE teachers are wanting, and then share those extensions throughout the district. So I thought that was a good discussion. Again, Peanut is a grant. Dan had to clarify this for me earlier, but it is a grant. It stands, obviously, an acronym stands for something, but currently we have a program in 5 of our elementary schools, Grow It, Try It, Like It. So they are presenting to kids maybe a new vegetable or a new something or other, and they call the kids in to actually taste it and then give their feedback to our nutrition program. And Tom shared that it's very successful, that kids really enjoy being a part of the process, especially around those food choices. And so they're gonna reapply for this grant in April to continue this program and hopefully go to different elementary schools. Then we had a food service update from Tom. We had a conversation around combining wellness, the wellness committee and the sustainability committee together at the building level. So we'll kind of see how that shakes out. They're discussing similar things like recycling, composting, gardening. And so how can we coordinate those conversations and possibly getting student council involved on these committees to implement them within their schools. The MDE, there's a grant coming for buying local produce. And on that note, a new orchard, which is called I think it's Wunsch Orchards on the peninsula. They are supplying apples and some other things to TCAPS and said that it's been really great. Kids have given some really great feedback. Tom also talked about that there's a clean label, there's a new process coming down from the state on clean labels, so basically labeling of food, so he just gave us an update on that. And then we had a LEAP update from Jana Deering. Currently, we have 5,630 students that participate in LEAP. Of course, this could be multiple sports. It's not necessarily 5,000 kids, but different sports and different activities. And we talked about how we can help pay for all of these kids to participate when there's costs and fees involved. We also talked about getting volunteer coaches at the elementary level. Again, Central Elementary School has 19 kids needing a basketball coach. So we talked about maybe trying to connect to our senior community to volunteer with LEAP, and also possibly talking to our TCAPS students or our recent graduates, and maybe, kids that have graduated that maybe played basketball or played, for part of the wrestling program, maybe they can help to volunteer with some of our LEAP programming through TCAPS. So maybe help that communication. What else, Beth? Anything else? I took terrible notes at this meeting, so that was my rendition of the meeting, but.
That was a lot of it, how to get the name out into the community more.
Yeah.
To see if we can get more community support for some of these things. And then we talked very briefly that we may also wanna look at some other things like THC use and alcohol, underage drinking. Those are harder to get into.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. And then board office hours. I'm reporting out for December 19th. I had one visitor. It was Mr. Wiesner, and I had pretty much uninterrupted the whole time, and it was I think we talked about many philosophies, and I'd say it was a fairly productive and positive meeting as well. So the next board office hours pending approval, which will be posted on the website, is trustee pack on January 23rd. Again, we'll have an update on that posted on website and social media with location and time, if that is the case. Moving on to, let's see, hold on a second.
Consent.
Yeah, sorry, there's consent. We just made so many changes. I feel like we've already covered this as well.
Yeah.
So moving on to consent, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar as amended?
I move to approve the consent calendar as amended.
Second.
Second, all right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Moving on to discussion, first discussion item, board education standards of practice. I think everyone's aware of it. Ty, just so you're aware, every year we've had a kind of like expectations of board members with a few minor changes, and I do have a couple of really minor changes I would propose to this, and that is in number 2. It says monitor the implementation of the 3-year strategic plan. I would put it as current strategic plan, because we are in a year where we have a strategic plan that will hopefully be changed to a new 3-year. I'm okay to leave it at 3-year too, but I didn't know if it should just say, or the strategic plan.
I interpreted that as whatever strategic plan is in place at that time, so it is current.
That's fine.
But
I'm okay.
if we change it to a 5-year plan, then we gotta change this.
Just remove 3-year.
I just removed 3-year, so to the current, or to the strategic plan.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Again, I don't think we are changing, and I agree with you, but just
The districts, the strategic plan.
monitor the implementation of the district strategic plan, that's also fine. And then in number 3, really minor, we don't have a specific continuous improvement plan, as it would indicate, so I would say removing the word and plan to commit to continuous improvement regarding student achievement.
Is that something that we were required by law?
We do have a
What's
district
on the
improvement plan and school improvement plans.
Mhm.
So we have improvement plans,
Yeah,
but I don't know.
I think that's what it's a reference to.
I think it is, I think his point is, it's referring to, but not articulated as that.
Yeah. Well, it says regarding student achievement at each school, so, and throughout the district, so that is one in fact, the same.
Yeah, so I think it was, because then it goes on to model continuous learning in our roles as Board of Education members, so I think it's more to the point of continuous improvement.
So you're trying to say it's many things of continuous improvement, not just a singular.
Plan, because what plan is it? We've got at least two.
Commit to
So,
improvement plans,
To
plural.
commit to continuous improvement regarding student achievement at each school, which I think is more all encompassing and to the point. Again, very minor, and I don't mind if they're thrown out. It's just I feel like each year we change a couple words on this and
I have a small suggestion too, with the last number 7, specifically the last 2 bullets, 7C, understand that we have a special moral and ethical imperative to serve each student and that we will equitably allocate resources based on student need, and 7D, recognize and work to meet students' academic and non-academic needs in order to ensure that they are ready to learn. You know, I love that, and I guess I'd like to see that higher. And not that maybe they're ranked in importance, but I'd like to see number 7 moved up to number 4. 1, 2, and 3 address student learning and student achievement. And again, you know, I think those 2 things align with our mission and our vision and our values around relentlessly supporting all learners, success for all. So I love C and D, and I'd like to see them higher.
And I don't know that we have ranked these.
they're definitely not ranked.
They're definitely not
Oh, I
ranked.
know that, but I don't like to see them on the second page, and that's, so I mean, you can take it or leave it, but I do think those are 2 very important bullets that I'd like to see moved higher.
I definitely don't mind. The only question then comes is I don't necessarily want to spend 20 minutes of ranking them in order.
No.
So
Scott, I will tell you that when it's printed, it's a longer
yes.
form, so there, it's all on one page. And that's what it would look like on the district website. I can grab it.
No, you're fine. It's I was just
like
like
to show it. I mean, it's not a big deal, but I just, again, I think just to spotlight those 2, 7C, 7D, 1, 2, 3 address student learning and student
I'm
achievement.
okay to move 7 up to 4 if everyone else is. Obviously, as long as we don't have to debate any order beyond that, I'm fine with it. If anyone else
So we
has any
move
comments.
all of 7,
All
not
of
just.
7.
All of 7, yeah, up to
That's 4.
4, and everyone else will go down 1, but it will be on. It is all on one bigger page.
I'm just gonna say, I think by doing that then you're putting out the message that something is less important, and I don't think that was the intent of the standards of practice. I think the standards of practice, in my opinion, are those values and that we are held to, and so I don't look at number 7 as any less than number 1 or number 2. I think once you start making those changes, I think that's the message you're sending, and then I do think we should rank them.
And that's what I was saying.
And then you're gonna get
if we're
into
gonna
like a
go
can
into
of
that.
worms.
Yeah.
So that's just my opinion.
And that's fine. So, and that's at the discretion of the board. I'm fine to also leave it on that because that's exactly what I wanted to avoid. So if there's any
A lot of
belief.
these kind of one goes into the other, goes into the other. You know?
And then we could definitely take, this is a document we do every year, so like, we haven't massively updated it for years.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'll try again next year too.
Yeah, we could, yeah. And to be honest,
You also do not have to number them, you could bullet them.
And again, it's
At very least, so it
grouping, you know,
doesn't show a ranking.
4, 5, and 6 have to do with governance. I mean, we don't need to group them either, and again, I wasn't involved with creating this, and so if it doesn't
I don't think
work out tonight, I'll try again
Erica
next
was,
year.
but I'll just refer to you as Alice like that.
Yeah.
Erica may have been the only one who was around when this was developed, so.
I think that you're bringing it up to help Tyler.
I am.
Yeah,
So
so
we
if I think that from what we're hearing is we'll leave it the same for now, but at the same time is I'm really okay to next year review. Yeah, I think we're due to review it and make any more changes too, so.
Yeah, for what it's worth, from an editorial perspective, I see number 7A and B being more governance oriented, and then C and D being, you know, it could go either way. It kind of spans the groupings of 1 through 3 and 4 to 6. it's a nice ending to this too. I think it's a strong ending to this, but I'm really amenable to
Okay.
whatever the majority likes.
I am also, but it's out, so just, we don't have to have a formal vote unless it's delicately placed, but is it leave the same with those order? Yeah, I think we can. But point heard is that we probably urge you to go through it a little bit more detail, but okay, so if we're okay with just the changes, then do we have a motion?
But I just wanted to say one thing, well, actually two things overall. I just having been on the board for 4 years, I think these standards of practice have really served us well. We've just made these minor tweaks here and there. But we all do have a responsibility to represent the district in a professional and ethical manner, including our appearances. Not to say we all have to wear business suits, and I certainly will not be exposing my midriff, but just want to make sure that everybody is aware of complying with the student and staff dress codes at a minimum. And then secondly, regarding 3A, it's a little strange that they group the Board of Education's continuous learning in with the commitment to the continuous improvement plan, but I just want to remind everybody that Michigan Association of School Boards does have its annual leadership conference this year in our backyard, Grand Traverse Resort, and it'd be really nice if we had a strong showing there, filling the table, and as the biggest district, in close proximity to that. And plus there are the quarterly opportunities, some of which are virtual, you don't have to travel anywhere, but yeah, so I found a lot of value in that. I know other trustees have, and just wanted to put a plug in for that.
Can we have that added to our calendars too, like just the annual leadership conference? Thanks.
Plus, I've been asking Dr. Van Wagner if we could invite these people who attend to the Patriot game here, and so we were talking about doing something along that line for an evening.
That's a good idea.
Fill the stadium.
To overlap?
Yeah, it's the last
that
weekend in
weekend,
October.
Oh, it is?
Not you're talking the February one.
Yeah, no, the
No, I'm
February
talking
Winter
the-
Institute
the-
is
yeah.
totally virtual, but the
Oh, yeah.
ALC, Annual
Yeah.
Leadership Conference,
big
is
one.
late October.
Okay.
And Beth is right, it does, we looked at our calendars last year, it did overlap with one of our major football games. So,
To know.
I'll bet you get a lot of takers who wanna come into downtown Traverse City.
Possibly.
So did we just have the consensus of the couple of grammatical changes
Yes.
that you made? So I would move that the Board of Education adopt the 2025 standards of practice as amended.
I second it.
Second. Alright, Stacy, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Raymond,
Yes.
trustee Pack,
Yes.
trustee Ballinger,
Yes.
trustee Bird,
Yes.
trustee Moon-Moore,
Yes.
trustee Schmidt,
Yes.
and trustee Newman-Dale.
Yes, motion carries. Next agenda item, school safety update, defended Dr. Van Wagner.
Yes, so, in celebration of National Law Enforcement Day last week on January 9th, I'd like to recognize our police officers who are dedicated to our district on a daily basis. Officer Justin Nolan is the SRO at Central High School and provides assistance to any TCAPS school within the city limits. He's also recently featured as our top-notch Tuesday Staff Member of the Week. Deputy Jessica Corr is stationed out of West Senior High School and covers West Middle School as well as the elementary schools on the west side of the county. She is a Grand Traverse County Deputy Sheriff. And Deputy Mackenzie Kreiner has recently been stationed at East Middle School and covers TC High as well as the elementary schools on the east side of the county. And again, really appreciate all of the support of the Traverse City Police Department and the Traverse City City Council that we've worked with for our liaison at Central High, as well as the Grand Traverse County Sheriff's Department and both Garfield Township and East Bay Township to help to support those deputies that are there. We really appreciate all the work that these officers do in playing a key role in keeping our students safe, while also fostering positive relationships with our school, within our school community. And I think, that's one of the things that I think when we started this venture is we really felt was important is that there was that fostering of positive relationships. And I can't tell you the amount of positive feedback I've had from different people in the community students even in that, and the relationships with the individuals. Cause I think the fear is having the wrong individual in those roles and looking at that as, a negative, but I think that so many positive relationships, and you see these folks at games and concerts and so many activities that our kids do, and so, again, wanna just recognize them and appreciate the support from our governmental partners in that work. Also wanna give you an update on AEDs. Beginning next school year, Michigan law will require every school in the state to have an emergency cardiac response team and protocol in place. I'm pleased to share that TCAPS is ahead of schedule and already has these plans in place at each school. A key component of these plans is the use of AEDs. And Patrick, again, who is our school safety director, continues to apply for grants to secure additional devices and training supplies. The district already has a strong AED program with at least one device in every elementary school and sports venue and at least 4 at each secondary school. If awarded, the latest grant for the Thomas Smith Memorial Foundation will help update training supplies, add AEDs to locations like transportation vehicles, and further equip emergency cardiac response teams. We are also fortunate that recently we received 4 AEDs to our secondary buildings, each of our secondary buildings of our 4 largest. They were provided by Farm Bureau and the agents, so at TC West, the Jill Irish Agency, at TC Central, Michelle Pearson Agency, TC East Middle School, Jeremy Crum Agency, and TC West Middle, the Benjamin Ammon Agency. And you might know Ben's a former employee of ours, worked with our facility staff and is now working with Farm Bureau. So appreciate all of those donations of those AEDs. Look forward to the applications waiting to hear on from, again, the application that was submitted with the Thomas Smith Memorial Foundation, and we're hoping to get more, and appreciate all of Patrick McManus's work on that, and we'll continue to keep you updated if we are able to receive those.
I have a question. Do you have an AED in this building?
We do.
So is the requirement you have one per building, but the goal is to have it in every wing of every building?
Eventual goal, we'll see how many we're able to get. As resources keep coming, we'll keep adding them as much as we can to be able to try and do that.
And then I read someplace that there was gonna be training for your team. Will that training be open to other staff, or will it be to very specific people?
Right now, I think it'll be just that staff, but one of the things we have recently added is CPR training as well. So we have Patrick and Kendall and our human resource offices have been trained in CPR as trainers. And so they are working across the district to continuously provide. It's a requirement now of teacher certification, I believe. And so that's one of the things we wanted to make sure that we had some trainers. And so they're working hard on that. Kendall's very pregnant, but still going. She's rolling with the CPR training, and so we appreciate their willingness to go through that training and some provide. So hopefully that's something we can add more of AED in the future. But we have had different trainings with our administrative team of the AED, as well as Stop the Bleed kits. Some of those elements as well. Patrick McManus did that training with our administrative team a year or so ago. I want to say at Montessori that we had. So continuing to work on those opportunities.
Do you offer it through your health education classes?
That I don't know. I will check and see. I know there's a CPR unit, but I don't know about the full certification of American Red Cross training from that.
No, we don't offer that to students. We do the basic CPR.
Yeah.
We just don't have staff that are certified to do that on
Yeah.
that, yeah.
But it might fold out, it might be. some of the
Hopefully we
kids-
get more. I will tell you, it's quite a bit of work to get that training, and we have just enough need for staff right now that we're really pushing, to try and have enough just to do that. But you may remember, but we are continuing to expose kids to it. When our 5th graders went to the Munson Health Day,
Yes.
they had the mannequins there, and we're teaching them the basics of CPR and that element. So again, multiple ways that we can try and introduce our students to that.
Because every once in a while, a kid is presented with an opportunity.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add too that our transportation managers are also trained, and so all of our bus drivers go through the CPR training and AED training on the required timeframes.
Would they come down in cost at all, like you would think?
The
about AEDs in general?
Units.
Not a ton, but you know, I think that there's a lot of grants and foundation, probably more.
But it used to be really pretty rare to like, it's like, oh, you got an AED, like you're top of the line
Yeah.
now. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've got one at Shorts, like there's actually one.
I don't know that answer, but I'll find out of cost.
You would
from
think
that
when you get
standpoint.
into mass production, then
Yeah.
they should have come down. I know it's also medical, so nothing comes down, but that's okay. Sorry,
And is it through, did you say, is it through American Heart Association or Red Cross that we're getting a lot of training?
We are going through the Red Cross
I
currently.
thought so, yeah, that's what I thought, Red Cross.
And so the requirement for 2025 to 26, is it for all teachers and administrators or just teachers?
Part of your certification
Correct,
requirement.
as part of teacher certification by MDE, it's now a start, it used to be that they wouldn't issue a teacher cert until it was completed, but based on the lack of trainers, staff have a certain period of time to complete that for their teacher certification. Thus, one of the reasons we decided to try to offer it internally. We're also seeing a number of our administrative assistants requesting that, so we're trying to build that into some of our early release days and, you know, other days where they can get that training as well, because they're likely going to be the ones who will encounter firsthand when those situations come through, as well as obviously some of our healthcare aides and so forth, just making sure when they're working with vulnerable students that they're prepared to assist when necessary.
Okay.
Might make a suggestion if you're at the point, we've reached about the 2-hour component for our students that are in the audience, so if the board would wanna take a pause for a minute.
Yep, that's, we can do that, and then, so students, you can come up with your sheets and, go to any board member, and, you are welcome to stay to the end of the meeting though as well, just to be clear, so, you can also get them signed
So
now.
now you're getting.
Hey, come on now. It's not an audit.
Oh my gosh, Dr. Van Wagner mispronounced Kellen last week. She's here.
Sorry.
Canary. Nice try.
Canary, did you say?
Canary, this is Amy's daughter. She's on
Really?
How are you?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. How are you, honey? You good?
A
Good.
board member has to do it, so one of those.
Is this your civics
So fun.
class?
Tell your mom I said hi, and your dad.
Kalel?
Are you ready for Monday? Yeah. It's supposed to be
Have a
like
good one.
5 degrees. Yeah, I know. I'll be gatekeeping, which I didn't know it was gonna be that cold. Yeah, it's supposed to be like that. I'm sorry? Yeah, without wind chill. You don't need my title, you don't need my title. I mean, I'm just a trustee, actually newly elected vice president. Yeah. Did you hear Dr. Van Wagner mispronounce your name? I was like, I almost corrected him, but then I was like, no. It's just rates going too fast. Yeah, and then you guys you don't have to stay, but you can stay if you want. Oh my gosh, and I know your dad and I graduated from high school together. Chris Kogelman, I tell him Erica Moon said hi.
Erica Moon?
Yeah.
Hey Connie,
We were
you
friends
don't have
all
extra
through high
copies
school,
of the
so I
policy
recognize you from like social media stuff, so yeah.
Alright.
Yeah, good to see you guys.
I've got them, that you can have them right after we're done.
Can you go make a couple of copies of the new ones?
I'm gonna run to that.
The brand new ones, right?
Just the ones we're gonna discuss.
Just the ones on discussion.
Just the two, or we moved a
There were
couple more.
3.
I'm adding
There
the
were 3 to
one
discussion.
thing on the
Do you
opioid.
want the one?
Yeah, well, yeah,
So I just did
these
the
are just, that's a revised, these
Do
are
you
the
have
new
them?
ones. I
We
think
do
that's the
have,
next item.
so
Next item up.
we
for
just
me.
have to extend the recess till the board members come back.
American Red Cross over.
All right, so I'm gonna ask a quick question while we're at a pause. Yes.
In cost.
We have a few policies here. I realize you don't have copies of them. Would you like copies of them? Stacy could print those off real quick.
They were in our,
In our
are they different
executive?
from our package?
Yeah, they were in your packet, so you have them
Yeah,
digitally.
if we're in there,
Just,
I'm good.
I've got them in paper.
okay, a couple people have asked for hard copies, so.
I've got, you know.
I will get mine on the phone. I
Right,
just
well, you
will
just
be,
print 3 of them off.
Yeah, it was 30 to 11.
Rather than her do it, somebody go,
I'm a
well, they
little
can copy.
offended that the students didn't wanna stay for board policy,
know.
but that's.
I know. I was like, we can bust out board policy in 6 minutes. I was like, that's
And then I think people.
I wasn't so sure, so it'd be,
yeah,
I'd save them.
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair.
You made some kids really
Roads
happy.
might be getting worse, so
Actually,
You just wanted not to have
I
to
think
drive
because
with them
we're gonna
driving.
there you go.
I drove out from East Lansing yesterday and
Through Cadillac?
I did, but that part was Clare, St. John's Clare.
Was it really?
Clare, and that was the worst roads I've ever been on.
Yeah, no kidding.
It looked-
Isn't it crazy how the wind just, the different jet stream can cut through a certain
It's
area?
like going up and like people had their flashes on, so I was slowing down and then literally all the cars just started going off. And I just broke and I've got a four-wheel drive, like snow tires, everything, and just literally glided through the river. I was like, this is nice.
Yeah.
It was just freezing, so the temperature dropped.
What did you do, Tammy, go again?
I see what you're saying, organization.
I'm curious if I don't.
I have a question. How come you started capitalizing parent?
So, that was in the last articles, but I don't think that's right. No different than any proper name.
I was just wondering.
Perfect. Otherwise known as rude.
No. Definition of parent includes guardian, so they don't see the need
Hey,
to
Dan,
delineate.
what's this meeting
So
that
that's really
you
just.
sent out? Oh, because it just says discuss adding,
It just seemed kind of
like
weird.
adding what?
It's throughout all of them. Anyone that said parent slash guardian before is now parent capitalized. I don't know why, something Josie has to say.
I know.
I don't know, but I got all my.
I said that to John.
Which,
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, I think
Arbitrary.
alright, we can start back up. We're still missing one trustee, but we can catch back up. And the question was, so now I think everyone either has a hard copy or
I'm working on getting her.
but we can start on the next agenda item, which is board policy. And we originally had two board policies, which I think we can start with those two and then deal with the other three when we get copies.
Would you like me to address those, Dr. Van?
Please do.
All right. So these are really pretty straightforward. We have two new policies. They're both statutory, both required, and they're based on some changes in the law. Just by way of history, previously, whenever we've had a request for accommodations, it's generally been associated with a disability accommodation. A disability that meets the definition under ADA. Previously, pregnancy was not one of those conditions in general, so just a general pregnancy without complications was not considered a ADA qualifying disability, and therefore we were not under the same obligations to meet with that staff member, discuss reasonable accommodations. We've seen some changes. There's been changes in the law. There's a new act, it's called the Pregnancy Worker Fairness Act, and basically what that does is say that similar to a ADA qualifying, if someone is pregnant and they're requesting accommodations during the course of that pregnancy, we would sit down and have an interactive dialogue with them, same as we would with other disabilities, and determine whether or not we can reasonably accommodate them without undue hardship to the district. So essentially, it's just extending that and including pregnancy as a qualifying disability, if you will, for purposes of providing accommodations. Any questions on that? And then also similarly, we've always had an obligation to try to accommodate staff members in terms of any religious accommodations that they may be requesting. But again, this new one, new court cases, new interpretations is basically providing that same interactive dialogue. If someone comes to me and says, hey, this is my religion, I'm asking for this particular accommodation, we would determine whether or not we could, again, reasonably accommodate without undue hardship to the district. So they're both pretty straightforward, but if the board has any questions, I'm happy to try to answer for you.
Okay. Any questions on those two specific policies?
I'll also note, and Dr. Ryder noted during the executive committee, now with Trune, we only need to do one reading. So if you make a motion to approve these two new policies, today will be our first reading and it would become effective for the district. No need to bring it back next month, which is nice. It kind of expedites the implementation of new policies for us.
Okay.
I move that the Board of Education approve Board Policy 4105A, pregnancy-related workplace accommodations, and 4105B, religious workplace accommodations for employees and applicants as presented.
Second.
Any other questions? Stacy, please conduct a roll call vote.
Stacy's not here.
That's like, you
Just grab a copy.
Yeah.
Dr. Van Wagner, should you be designated as her
See here, do
backup?
I have it? Oh boy, I've never done this part.
I don't know
You
if
can
I
just go around the circle here.
Yeah, just.
I guess I should
Start with the
You
first,
start
you start with
the person
who
that made the motion and then the second and you end with the
Go
first.
ahead.
Erica, you made the motion, who seconded?
I did.
Trustee Moon Moore,
Yes.
trustee Raymond,
Yes.
trustee Pack,
Yes,
trustee Ballinger,
Yes.
trustee Bird,
Yes.
trustee Schmidt.
Yes.
And trustee Newman Bale.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and then, do you want to wait till we have the hard copies? I think the next one is, policy
Any
3410.
minute, so we'll just wait just a second.
and it's actually very easy. It's, the only thing I'm asking is, it has A on emergency preparedness, B, notice and reporting. And there are three things listed under notice and reporting. Number 3, the final one says document all instances of opioid antagonist administration at school. And I would like to see added, including the reason for the medication, what was given, and the recipient response.
Will you, I'm sorry, repeat what you would like changed or added?
I just want to add a little bit more specifics on the what you're documenting.
Number B3,
C3.
B3.
Yeah, B3. And so instead of a period after school, put a comma and say including the reason for the medication, what was given, and the recipient response. And the reason is sometimes you can give a medication and have no response. You know, or so you'll have some variation on it, and that might be useful to know. Especially when you're reporting off and transferring patient.
Annie, do you have any
So I
thoughts
just- I
around
would say,
that?
well,
I would just suggest that this policy is very specific for the statutory requirements. That would be the board adding additional requirements. I believe what we have in terms of the opiate antagonist in the building, and Dr. Renner or Christine, please correct me, is the Narcan. And so it's always going to be the same medication. It's always going to be for someone we suspect of an overdose. And so I think you're adding additional layers, but that's at the discretion of the board.
The thing is, sometimes you give more than one dose. Not often, but sometimes you do.
Again, that would be at the discretion of the board. That would be beyond what's statutorily required.
I'm assuming that when you say document all instances of administration, that would probably include those notes if there's
I would hope so.
personnel involved, but I would, the thing that I'm afraid of is when we start adding things, then we exclude other things.
right, so if you're gonna add something, you would say including but not limited to or something like that.
Okay.
But is there a guidance that went with this policy or, I mean, I guess sometimes
There
we
will be,
have
we're working
administrative
on the,
guidance.
well, I stand corrected. There may be, I have not directly looked to see if there's one correlated with this, but we're working on the admin guidelines now.
Or including where possible, like so that you don't exclude things. Or, yeah.
Yeah,
Connie, do you remember what this policy, the only revision was the word parent B3?
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
We moved from Neola to Troon, was this a new policy for us that we approved over the summer?
I'm not sure if we had previously adopted because the opioid requirement to have the antagonist is new, but we may have had a corresponding one with Neola, but it's all based on the statutory requirement within buildings. So as you recall, we have now a requirement to have EpiPens for allergic reaction, anaphylaxis reaction. Similarly, now this opioid, having those on site is also now a requirement.
I guess I'm just saying, I would imagine there's probably some predetermined form that's being filled out when you do this, so that predetermined form probably has all of those things that you're
It
requesting.
may, I know I
Jesse's.
carry Narcan.
Yeah, I'll just let you know,
it's
like,
available.
on the sites, anytime we get to a situation in which this could be a possibility, pretty much you're on the phone with 911 and you're listening to the directions of the medical, staff as far as like what to do and how to respond, so.
Well, it's pretty simple to administer.
It is very easy to administer, yes, yeah.
So I guess the biggest thing is, was it effective? I
So
mean,
really, the biggest thing you have is including outcome.
Yeah, but how,
I'm not into the student records.
I guess you won't know the outcome.
No,
Yeah, you
no,
wouldn't.
no, it would be, well, wherever you're putting that I'm assuming, because it says something about you're gonna collect data. Doesn't it say that
Document all.
someplace? Yeah.
Just document
Right.
all.
Yeah.
It's just, what if we administer, we document.
Yeah, yeah, and just, you'd sort of like to know that they responded to it.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if
even
you can legally know that though.
If you
Well,
look
They start
up,
to breathe better and
Like
they
they
open
could,
their eyes.
the person who does it obviously knows, but I don't know if you can tell other people.
And again, I also wouldn't wanna make medical determinations of what worked and didn't and how effective in that element as a school teacher or a superintendent for that matter.
and if you look under A2, it does talk about when we're administering it. We may only administer it if we believe that the person is having, or has
Respiratory depression. is
well,
what you're-
opioid related overdose on school grounds.
And you're gonna have to understand what that translates to.
But as, Jesse indicated, most likely we're gonna be on the phone with 911 to determine these are the symptoms that we're witnessing, and they would potentially suggest the administration of Narcan.
do they have, or does the school carry those strips, like the fentanyl test strips and things like that?
No.
I've seen those kind of similarly, like they're given out next to the Narcan so that people know. they can
I'll
do
be
it.
perfectly honest with the addition, apart from your typical first aid and CPR, we really have two things that by virtue of statute that has been an additional responsibility placed upon districts, and that is to maintain for the allergy related and now for opioid related. So it's a pretty small carve out, so we've not really extended to other levels of overdose and those sorts of things. That would be something we would call 911 and have them come and administer the appropriate medications.
What were the three things you wanted again?
The reason for the medication, but you're feeling that
Yeah, I mean,
that's covered when you get on the phone with the EMS.
What?
And then what was given, and in this case, it'd be pretty standard, right? But just to name it and then recipient response.
My suggestion is that we consider that, and we can talk about that, Beth, in the administrative guidelines if we create it.
Okay.
There's always the specifics generally of practice are generally in an administrative guideline.
Okay.
And that would also include if there is a particular form that should be completed, there's forms related to some of these. And again, I have not researched to see if we have a form, a standardized form.
Remember that,
It's
take
just,
a little
you
note
know-
when we go through administrative guidelines.
Sometimes when you get a patient, you kind of like to know what happened in the field. And it helps you a little bit when you're trying to get your ducks in a row, getting things organized for the best way to deal with the patient's situation.
I can totally see how a state or local public health authority might want this data, but it's not statutory required, and so that's where us making a medical call is.
Well, for instance, if the
issue,
person,
right?
out of the blue, suppose a person's having a stroke and you administer Narcan. It's not gonna change the level of the stroke. Because that's not the treatment for what's going on. And it's a rule out at that point. But on the other hand, if you feel that the oral report is enough, then the oral report is.
And again, I appreciate the perspective from a medical position, not an educator.
Right, and the like Ms. Houghton said, I mean, typically you're gonna be on the phone with 911 and those first responders are gonna be documenting from their medical perspective. I'm not sure that's the responsibility of the educators that's probably administering this. So I think they're gonna have their own documentation as they're probably required to do.
And again, we'll have what was given.
Well, they're recorded.
And we document them, we document all the 911 calls, and if it was a chronic health issue, we would then put it into a healthcare plan for the student in addition.
But, you know, I'm just looking at it from being the nurse in ER. Bad position.
It's not a bad position.
No,
It's
just different.
it's just a different one.
Different perspective.
Yep.
I was just curious, Tammy and Dan too, from your experience in the buildings, have you seen a form for these kinds of circumstances?
No, I go back to, I guess it's the documentation process is gonna be quite lengthy, like this would be a major event in any school if this did happen, once we call 911, even in high schools and my experience in middle school also. And the documentation on our end through Power School would, I think, cover most of the things that we've discussed here. Nice thing that student record, we don't get into too many details, especially we don't make a medical call within that. We definitely document, you know, our observations, what we did, what order we did it in. There'd be a pretty lengthy debrief, I think, with the administration team after something like this happened to kind of go through these steps.
And again, with this policy, we're gonna have to determine what that is, if that's what it is, or something different, and that'll be in the administrative guidelines.
Okay.
So we make
Are we
motions
good?
on these individually?
Well, I mean,
That was one.
yeah.
It sounds like it's in the hands of administrative guidelines.
Yeah, but I'm asking. if-
Well, no, we'll go down because there's no
You
motion
do
to
all
be made.
three.
Well, we
It
do
was
have
in
to, we
consent,
have
so
to,
we have
yes,
to-
we have
yeah.
to adopt that one.
So you wanna
I'm
do-
okay to
you wanna
do
do
one
one?
at a time.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve board policy 3410 opioid antagonist as presented.
Second, Josie. Stacy, please conduct a roll call vote.
I'm off the hook.
And I was gonna give it back to you, but my brain's not working fast today for as many jokes, so.
Trustee Raymond.
Yes.
Trustee Ballinger.
Yes.
Trustee Bird.
Yes.
Trustee Moore.
Yes.
Trustee Pat.
Abstain.
You cannot,
That's when you,
MASB just gave us a ruling, you cannot do that by the rules,
Unless you have a conflict of interest.
yeah, unless you.
unless it's a conflict of
No.
interest.
And that's fine, like really,
Yep.
that is the point, is it's okay to,
Yep.
we don't have to have unanimous vote. So sorry.
Trustee Schmidt.
Yes.
And trustee Newman.
Yes, motion carries.
And I mean that respectfully, just by rules.
Yeah.
We had this discussion
And
it was
MASB came out
unclear.
with a clarification on it just a couple months ago. I'll make sure to get that to you, but it did say there was very narrow reasons you can, and pretty much conflict of interest was it.
Yep. And then, so
Kinda, that's where I was.
3211. So the next one, policy that was added from consent is post-issuance compliance, 3211. This was printed out as well for everyone, and everyone does have a copy. Deferring to Dr. Van Wagner for clarifications or,
Can I take it?
yeah.
Please do.
This was at my request. For training and education, I actually had a conversation with Troon, our Christopher Iyer-Marino that works on all of our bonds and our post-issuance disclosures. It actually is not required by law to complete annual training, and the reason I'm asking to strike it is he couldn't even recommend what kind of training we could take. And so I believe you can strike the second sentence, and then the very last sentence would just start with training, not annual.
Which number was that in?
It's the very end of 3211H.
Oh,
So you'd keep the first sentence as is, And then the second set, you would end it after debt compliance officer period. You would strike the debt compliance officer will complete training at least annually. And then in the next sentence, you would strike the word annually and start with training may be provided to additional personnel who assist the debt compliance officer.
So the legal authority for this was a regulation?
No, so originally, if you look at that sentence, the under H, there was a missing word. So the revision was just to add the word annually to comply with the last sentence. That highlighted it to Christine, who then reached out and said, we've never heard about what, so if there is a requirement for training, what is that training? And Trin said, we recommend training, but we don't know what that looks like, and there's no requirement to do it annually. So it is definitely best practice. We'll continue to make sure our staff is trained, especially if there's changes and things need to be made, but to bind ourselves to an annual training when that annual training doesn't even exist that we know of, is above and beyond what is necessary, so.
I'll make a motion to approve 3211 post-issuance tax compliance as amended.
Second.
Second, Erica. Alright, Stacy, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Raymond?
Yes.
Trustee Moore?
Yes.
Trustee Ballinger?
Yes.
Trustee Bird? Yes. Trustee Peck?
Yes.
Trustee Schmidt?
Yes.
Trustee Newman Bell?
Yes, motion carries. Next discussion item is an item pulled from consent. It is number board policy 3303, gifts and donations. Ty, I think you had,
No, it was
who was you? I'm
Yeah,
Ty.
yeah,
I
that's
apologize.
fine. Yeah, actually, so we talked about this policy during executive committee review, and Dr. Van Wagener pointed out that under our old Neola policy, the threshold was $10,000, and now with Trune, it has changed to $20,000. And he did say, and it's manifested in the Mahogany Foundation donation that's on our agenda today, that he would like to continue the practice of a $10,000 threshold, but I thought it came up like very quickly at the end of our meeting, that maybe this is something we want to align our policy with our practice, whether it is 10 or 20, either way, especially if there's ever any turnover down the road amongst ourselves, if we want to keep being informed if it's $10,000 or 20, or move it up to $20,000.
I thought that the exception that we talked about was because the donation was made before we adopted or because of the 10,000 donation, and
Okay,
so
it came in over a couple months' time.
and
but-
so to keep it, just acknowledge the 10,000, but keep the policy as is with 20,000 moving forward was my understanding.
That was the conversation, but I think that Secretary Ballinger is talking about maybe, does the board feel differently?
It's not a statutory requirement, right? The 20,000, it's totally discretionary. I just feel like if some organization or individual does donate $10,000, I think it's wonderful for us to be informed and to publicly acknowledge them. If we move the threshold up to 20, it's just a higher bar where they might not get that public recognition. So that was my thinking. It could be $1,000, it could be $5,000.
I know, I appreciate the $50 donation.
But
I mean,
to me,
I think,
$10,000 would be big.
yeah, I mean, I'm also okay leaving it at 10. I was just trying to read the law to make sure there wasn't unfortunately the law references other laws, so it would take a little bit, but either way, obviously it'd be more inclusive than that.
And Neola hasn't changed it from 10 to 20.
No, what you're suggesting is lowering it down to 10, so if they're even, like, the statute would be the ceiling, so you guys can set that at whatever is your discretion. I guess I would ask the question though of, if we're saying all donations are brought for recognition or approved by the board, it would have to be a minimum of 10,000, is that what you're suggesting?
Well, that was the Neola policy, right? That
It
we
wasn't
had
a minimum,
until.
like you could still recognize a donation below 10,000.
But you're giving the superintendent authority to accept a donation. Well, this one would give him the authority to accept a donation under 20,000. Anything over 20,000, the board would need to accept.
Yeah, in that piece, I'm not sure how it compares. I'm not concerned about that. so
Before,
much
if it
as
was
the-
over 10,000, the board had to formally accept it.
Okay. Yeah, it's not so much who accepts,
You're
but the
talking about the
public
recognition
acknowledgement.
of it.
Yes, the public acknowledgement. Because if the board is not accepting it, then it wouldn't even be on our agenda and it wouldn't necessarily be publicly disclosed.
I mean, personally, I would like the superintendent to accept any gifts of any
Yeah,
amount as quickly as possible.
there is that. There is that.
Unless there's strings attached.
I don't wanna be like,
Second.
give me your money next month, it's like, I'll take it now, but so I would, if anything, I mean, you could add board notice to that and leave it the same, so like, donations, any donation over X number of dollars would notice to the board,
Mhm.
that way he can legally accept it. So you're separating the
Right,
two, just an FYI.
Right, I think that would be a better outcome as well. I don't
Connie,
know
do
what the
you have
regulations
packages?
say though, Connie, like,
Again, we're talking about floor and ceiling here, so I mean, if it said that we'll let Dr. Van Wagner accept anything up to 50,000, then I'd have to do some research to see if the statute would allow that. But what we're suggesting is lowering that bar to 10,000 from the 20,000 that Shroon has in here.
So what we're actually saying now though is leaving it at 20, so legally he can accept whatever he's
Yeah,
allowed to accept.
no, that's gonna be
And
totally
then
permissible.
just having any donation above X dollars will give notice to the board. So it doesn't, there's no.
I think it's an exception, accept
given.
the donations
Can I
of
make a
personal
suggestion?
property exceeding 20,000.
If I can make a suggestion, I would ask that you put that in admin guidelines. We're happy to bring that to Board Finance and Operations under informational items. It's just a matter of putting it exactly in the policy versus putting it in admin guidelines. We're happy to keep letting the board know of those. It's just a matter of whether it has to go to the full board for approval or if it's just an informational item.
Yep, so that's fine too. So I guess we would ask in the administrative guidelines that the board is notified of any donation. You wanna leave it at 10, over 5, whatever number, 10?
if 10's been the practice for years, I think that sounds
So we
great.
just ask that you include that administrative guidelines, otherwise it can remain as is.
I'll include that.
And then number 3, we keep as is here in this policy, is that what you're thinking?
Yes.
20,000?
Yeah, so we'll leave it there, but in administrative guidelines, we'll give board guidance to include any notice to the board over 10.
If it is legal for the superintendent to accept donations of any size, that's also fine with me, like you said, like you suggested earlier. It's just
Only-
the public acknowledgement piece.
I'd be careful a little bit because, if there is something and it has a string attached or, there's some component there. I think it's best probably for
Yeah.
Something
get a higher
clearly
dollar
happened.
Fair
as
point.
for the
opposed
board
to-
at least to make sure that, and again, beyond us possibly, right? That there's not something there, oh yeah, I took this donation, but we also have to, have a second graduation for somebody here.
And the larger the donation, the higher the likelihood that there's probably strings
That's
attached.
probably why there's a dollar, that's probably the safe dollar
What's a
amount.
second graduation?
Somebody wants to have a graduation because grandma couldn't make it, so we'll give you 50 grand if you do a special graduation for my kid.
Cause that's kind of what number 5 says, it addresses. Is donations accepted by the district will be used for any specific purpose identified by the donor.
Yeah.
And
Provided
consistent with
it's
the
lawful
district's.
and consistent.
So long as it's legal.
Yeah.
An extra graduation might be legal, so there you go.
I had one time, a check for $25,000 and looked forward to his kid starting in the football game on.
Oh.
So,
Mhm.
Why does that not surprise me?
No, not a
It
ticket.
has to do with
Well,
sports.
Yep.
There
Yes,
also,
so I think, it would remain as presented.
So we don't have to make a motion.
Right.
No,
Well,
we do
there is
because
one
because we
modification.
put off consensus, not approved it, we need to
Okay.
approve it.
Okay.
So it would just be the change in parent is the change that you're
So it's
adopting.
as presented.
Everything else we'll
Yeah.
put in admin.
yeah, the one.
So approve board policy,
So I'll make the motion to approve board policy 3303 gifts and donation as presented.
Second.
alright, second. Stacy, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Raymond,
Yes.
trustee Moon Moore,
Yes.
trustee Ballinger,
Yes.
trustee Bird,
Yes.
trustee Pack,
Yeah.
trustee Schmidt,
Yes.
trustee Newman Vale.
Yes, motion carries. So moving on to the next discussion item, which is now lab property housing project. Deferring to Dr. Van Wagner.
Okay, so, we've been talking about this project for a long time, and this is really just step one of multiple steps. So reminder, we were a part of a group of education entities in our region that requested an appropriation from the state legislature and we received $5 million for a housing project for educators and education support staff. We've been working with we put an RFP out as a group and had multiple entities that submitted that, and we had the group selected a group called Senior Solutions out of the Detroit area that is a nonprofit developer. And they partnered with Cunningham Limp, who is a construction management company, has done quite a bit of work here locally. Last thing you might know is the the curling center they did. They've done a lot of work, the old Kmart out there. They have different projects in town. So they teamed up to the RFP response and they were the selected group. So we've been working with them for over 1.5 years on the project of talking about costing it out, ownership, all those different elements. And we're to the point where our first step is that we as the education entities have to create a legal connected entity. And that's very careful. We've worked closely with Gordon Van Weeren at Troon. We as a public body cannot create a LLC or a for-profit or anything from that standpoint. What we can do is really create an interlocal agreement. And as it's been debated, it's really was decided Northwest Education Services was the entity that received the $5 million from the legislature and is the fiscal for that. And then we've all along debated different places for this project. And as the 4 entities, we felt that Blair Township next to Blair Elementary was a location that we all were pretty excited about. Interlochen Center for the Arts is, kind of a halfway point, that element. I think we're excited about having this nice new development right next to Blair Elementary. We think there's potential for student recruitment, staff even. Again, when we're recruiting staff for Blair Elementary, how cool would it be to live right next door? All those elements. So we've talked back and forth about what the units look like, all those things. And we're at this point of settled on a duplex structure. We had some issues with sewer and water in that area. There's not enough sewer capacity in Blair Township, so it has to be septic. We can bring water. We did bring water from well to Blair Elementary about 2 years ago. Yeah. 2 or 3 years ago. And so we've worked through that. We don't exactly know quite yet how many units. We have one more hurdle of some financing that we think we're very, very, very close to. A program that in the past has been called the Missing Middle that allows us to get between 80% and 120% AMI, and that deals with the affordability component, while don't want to confuse words of low income affordability, but it's something that we are hopeful that is affordable for our educators. MSHDA does set the Michigan State Housing Development Authority does set the rent standards because the money comes from the state in the next pot, especially from MSHDA. We'll be a part of that. But this is the first ever state project that we have figured out, we believe, working with Senior, the legal language to make it eligible only to educators and education support staff, K-12. By law, it cannot limit where those people work in K-12, so it can be anybody across the region. So really, to an extent, we are just stewards of a region, although we think our TCAPS folks and the other entities will have a great shot at some of the units. We think we're probably somewhere between 50 and 75 units right now, depending on cost and where things come in. But that's a little bit cart before the horse. The first step is Northwest Ed and TCAPS will be the lead entities of the interlocal agreement, and Interlochen Center for the Arts and Grand Traverse Area Catholic Schools will be secondary partners. And really that's because we have a financial stake in it. We would be selling the property that's there. I think the last time we talked, it was around 9 acres. I did provide the board today with a map that is not a done deal map. That's the last map we've had. There will actually have to be a survey, an appraisal, all those things yet to be done once they know exactly how many units and where that fits in. But as I had showed the board that we do have a drain filled in area, so it does have to be shifted somewhat. But in the end, Senior Solutions would be the owner, working with Cunningham Limp as construction management. We have talked with Gordon with Troon quite a bit about what we can do for protections, deed restrictions, all those kind of things to ensure the entity maintains of what it's supposed to be. We will get into that, but before we can do any of that, I need the board to consider approving the interlocal agreement between the four entities and the documents as presented and authorizing me to sign that interlocal agreement.
So I think you just answered my question, but I'm gonna ask it, cause I already
Yep.
had it all in my head, but so the details of like running with the land, the deed restrictions, running with the land, that stay with the land, no matter, that comes next, those
That, I don't even about
specifics.
next, but it comes in the future.
Okay,
You know, the board at some point will have to approve the sale of the land to Senior. And that's where the rubber will meet the road for the
Okay.
board to feel comfortable that whatever, we'll have Gordon, present to the board all those protections that are legally allowable. You know, we're trying to work exactly through that of if it can be a deed restriction or if it's something different. We also know Mishta is gonna have some requirements. We will get there, we're just not there yet.
Okay.
So really, this commits the board to nothing other than the interlocal agreement.
got
There
it,
will be steps forward, and where really that rubber hits the road for, I think the board is when it comes time to sell the land to Senior. That's where the protections and those things, I believe the board will wanna speak with Gordon Witroon about what those things are.
perfect.
So sorry, I was just gonna say, I have something real small that's probably gonna get caught in review. You have TCAPS address in here as 412 Webster.
Yeah, it's been changed, you're correct. So if we can amend, if you're good with that as amended with that, we'll make sure that Gordon gets that fixed from that standpoint.
It's in here twice, I think.
Yeah.
We were given it as a PDF, so we just had to give them the feedback to use it.
I figured it was caught already.
So it's too early then for us to say that once we did the property transfer, that we would be able to stipulate that TCAPS wouldn't be responsible for any future maintenance.
That is correct. We're not there
Or
yet.
administration.
That will all be a part of that agreement understanding. You know, and we debated back and forth like ownership and stake in ownership. And I think all the education entities in the end, we felt like there's a lot that could go wrong with that. You know, that we don't want, we're in the role of educators. You know, we were a bit over our skis, if you will, as superintendents, you know, like that, figuring out all this. I've learned a ton. At the same point, we don't wanna have to have the capacity of being property managers, everything that entails with that. You know, we feel good that we've laid the groundwork for what this could be and help provide some housing for educators in our region that's never been done before, and hopefully that can be copied in other parts of our state and be that beacon for the first to do it. Beyond that, you know, the only thing we've talked about is maybe each of the entities be a part of a referent group, that a pot of money would be created to have improvements in the future, maybe such as like a gazebo or a pavilion, that we may have a referent group that we would give feedback, you know, on what that might be. Other than that, that's the only thing we've talked about responsibility, and it would be a volunteer responsibility, even of that in the future. But again, we're not there yet. When that time comes is really when we decide to actually sell the property. That's when a lot of these kind of things you'll wanna have answered, and I would make sure that we have Gordon here to really talk through that.
And then the other thing is, now would these be people that are currently employed or contracted?
Yes, you have to be a K-12 educator, or basically have to work currently for a K-12 school.
So if this is a person who potentially wants to retire,
Mhm.
you know, and they want to use this as their new home.
I don't, you know, my guess is they're gonna have to be a K-12 employee when they at least start it. Those are rules that are gonna have to be worked through with Mishta and those elements, you know. We're the first to do this, so we don't know what those boundaries are. We know the boundary stops at, we couldn't say you had to be a TCAPS or an Interlochen or a Northwest Ed employee. We can't do that. But we could say you have to be a K-12 employee in a school district is the farthest, and that's never been done, going that far. So this will be the first one we've found the legal language to make that work, but beyond that, that is it.
Which we could only do because of the appropriation,
Correct.
the way it was worded.
Right, which we learned from California and San Francisco when they did theirs, that it passed legal muster. Or muster.
Some things go up in smoke in California, so.
True, you know, but we wanna make sure that this is done correctly and that you know, our people are protected, the district's protected, and that we're able to make sure that the project is done correctly and sustains what the
Yeah.
meeting is for.
Yeah, cause you'd also hate to have to decide between something that really benefited the schools and help maintain this project that just needed a little bit of help.
Yeah, but like I said, and we'll rely on lawyers, you know, that we're gonna need guidance for through that completely.
This
to
is
make
like
that
a
happen.
very, like, there's an idea, it's basically like starting a company and then you figure out the details of what it's there and it doesn't. do
And
much,
what
but
will
you do have
happen?
sorry, can we do Joyce's question, then we'll come back to your question?
Okay,
Yeah, my big question was the 30-year timeframe for this, and how the lawyers came up with that timeframe, because that is a long timeframe. And I didn't see an escape clause in here either for the parties until after 30 years, and then when it's up for annual renewal, then the parties could, you know, withdraw with 180 days notice. So I just was curious, like, I thought that maybe that's consistent with what the developer wants as a contract.
I don't know as much as a developer, I think it's Mishta with the funding and the length of time it's gonna take to be able to pay it off. Is my guess of what that
Gap
ends up.
funding.
Because I do see possibly there being some language in there that if for some reason this was to go bankrupt or something, that element, we may have to have a clawback option. You know, to make sure that it ends up as maintaining as the entity's intended. So that's my guess from our conversations that we had with Gordon right there.
or that the land couldn't be sold to somebody you prefer.
Correct.
But again, these are all like points that just starting out.
Yeah.
Again, because it hasn't been done before, it's not like you can look at the guideline book.
My only comment, if I can, is just that, I mean, I'm full support, I think it's a fantastic project for our region, and you know, the words workforce housing and affordable housing are thrown around pretty loose in this resolution, and I just wanna make sure we're clear that workforce housing 120% AMI, and that we're okay with that, right? 120% AMI means $1,800 a month for a studio, $2,000 a month for a one bed, $2,400 a month for a two bed, and that 120% AMI is considered affordable to a single person earning $75,000 a year or a couple earning $86,000 a year. And the county, I believe, moved their workforce housing number down to
80% AMI.
80%. So I just, you know, because we have to be prepared when people hear affordable or workforce, $2,000 a month for an apartment may not sound affordable to the public. So just something to consider and that's not for tonight, but next time.
Yeah, and to help you out with the thoughts, the debates on that, the 80% AMI money is much harder to come by from the state. And we're facing right now the ability probably to pretty quickly, we think, a chance at getting the 120. We've always envisioned a second phase that would be at the 80 AMI. You know, to be able to do that, we would apply a second round through Michigan for funding for that. But, you know, this is really a hard project to be able to get funding for. And we kind of feel like they've tailored something for us because the governor liked the project so much. But it falls within what's been called the missing middle. And so that's.
Well, it wasn't even, I mean, to your point, and I've been doing economic development, it's always been annoying with the terms thrown around, but it's probably more affordable. But really the key, I think that we struggle with most is it's available. And that's one of the things I think we've struggled with talent retention is it's like even if they have somewhere to move, there's no availability.
Yeah, so I'm all for more homes, more better, right? But as long as we're comfortable with, say, $2,000 a month, and I don't know exactly what a teacher makes, maybe a teacher does make 75 grand a year, but
if they're very experienced.
But anyways, but I again, wonderful project, full support, looking forward to helping.
Yep.
But a new teacher makes around 46. With no experience, which is generally the new grad.
But so clearly plenty to cover later. But this is just getting the interlocal so we can
Literally
start.
our first step.
Yeah. So we can start having those discussions.
The contract would trump this, right? A contract with the developer, et cetera. So you would have some kind of escape clause if you know,
Right now,
in
there's
15,
nothing.
20 years,
Correct.
you know, there was no
But
longer
the,
need.
the contract will be with the entity, not the district.
Mm.
You know, where we have a probably a stronger arm, both Northwest Ed and us, is that we have a financial component here that we can, you know, like, I think the deed's gonna be a huge part, and we control that. And Northwest Ed controls the $5 million appropriation. The other two entities, not so much, they're along as secondary partners, but I think we're gonna have, if you will, the muscle of what we want as TCAPS the intention to be, I think is gonna fall within the sale of that property. But I think Gordon's gonna, a little bit above my expertise, Gordon's gonna have to definitely weigh in for the board on exactly what is legal and what those things can look like.
And does that mean that Interlochen and Grand Traverse GTACs
Yeah.
would have they would have fewer or possibly zero housing units
No.
reserved? Okay.
No. We will have no more than any other school in the region. You know, we are literally doing this somewhat gratis for the purpose to be the trailblazers, to provide more for our region. And do I think that some of our folks will benefit? Absolutely. But it's very much a lottery kind of system for those entities of K-12 educators and support staff.
But we're the largest employer.
We
So
are,
we'll
right.
have more,
But
more
it
number of
won't-
names in the hat.
Yeah, right, from that element, you know, but how that works, that'll all be done under fair housing standards and all those things as required. And that won't be us, that will be Senior that has to run that operation.
Yeah. Okay, and again, this is literally just the very first, so we can even start having those discussions. And then
Well, I'll make the motion here, save Angie the trouble, to move that the Board of Education authorizes Dr. Van Wagner, Superintendent, to execute the sponsorship agreement, interlocal agreement for the Blair Property Housing Project as presented.
alright, do I have a second? Second, Jersey. Stacy, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Schmidt,
Yes.
trustee Ballinger,
Yes.
trustee Bird, yes, trustee Moonmore,
Yes.
trustee Pack,
Yes.
trustee Raymond,
Yes.
and trustee Newman Dale.
Yes, motion carries. The next discussion item is added item E, designation of days, times for meetings. I know we covered some of the stuff on this, but we have a formal adoption, but there are still a couple of debate items that we need to go. I think firstly, there was a clarification, which was a good one from
Yeah,
Andrew.
I would like to move the office hours scheduled for March 20th to the week before, maybe on March 13th. March 20th is kind of the first night, I guess, of spring break probably.
So the night before spring break starts. I remember I had this problem 2 years ago.
Yeah, it is. It's the Thursday, so spring break starts on.
I take it you didn't have great attendance.
I
Oh, that's right.
proactively moved it.
That's right, you did.
So I think we just do
That's
it,
right.
schedule it the week before, there's no objection.
Yeah,
Yep.
no
objection.
Okay, and there's nothing else on the assuming that nothing conflicts with it on the district calendar. And then the other item that I did print out and lead to is, and we don't have to decide all the study sessions today. It comes up frequently, and we are now in January, so we already have one in January 27th, which we had designated as AI because we needed that, we felt we needed that earlier. Is that still okay? Is that?
It is, I know that Evan and his team and Jesse and Dan have been working with him, and so I think that they are preparing for that.
Okay. And then we had board relations on February 24th. I don't know if we had a firm proposal of, I think we had ideas, but I don't know if we had an actual final, if that was just something I put in as a, that's what I've heard. But I will confirm before we get into that, I guess, strategic planning. I did have a conversation with Nick Scleric before the board meeting. He has agreed to reluctantly, partially, with a few clauses in there that we have to still thing. So I will tell him it was mostly agreed that he will
Mostly.
do the sessions. We do have some work to do on the data portion, a few other things to make it so it does fit in with his schedule, but assuming we can cover those.
So essentially, he wants a
Facilitating.
we're gonna need to get a second party to do the data, the survey and data collection work.
You will
and
facilitate.
he will facilitate the two. So I do have a couple of groups that I've recently been introduced to. And I'm gonna try and get some conversations and quotes from them on what that would look like that I can present to the board.
Yeah, thank you. I was gonna say, I remember last time we had a couple of quotes that included the data and the, right, all the bidders.
We put an RFP out originally for that, so, yeah.
They, I mean, 3 years ago, they offered to do both for a set price, and he wants to
He can't do
delineate that.
He says he did that, yeah, he told Scott, my understanding is,
Yeah.
he would need that separated and somebody else would have to do that work, so. Like I said, I've been recently introduced to some folks, especially in the Grand Rapids area, that do this work for a lot of entities, so I'm gonna re-engage them and see what that might cost wise and such be and present that to the board.
Did we put out an RFP for facilitation this time? No. So is it a prorated amount of what he did 3 years ago?
Literally, this was just
Yeah,
I
okay.
don't think he was planning on saying yes at the beginning of the conversation, so I had
Yeah.
to work aside. So I think he said he was gonna send Dr. Van Wagner a proposal and how it could work. So there's still some details, but that would take 2 for facilitation, and then I think we did another, we could have another one for finalize it or pre. So we have 3 put on there right now. We may only need 2, but we have 3. And so the question is I did ask all board members to give any items potentially for study sessions. I included them as given. And every board member has a copy of that. I'm okay, again, I don't think we need to necessarily designate all, because as we learned last year, some things just come up quickly, we may need an empty one as a backup, mid-year and late year, so I think we should probably leave a couple open. Pretty much we're already gonna be scheduled out until almost summer here, so again, the board relations one is in there. I cannot remember if there was actually a firm proposal and how we left off that one, but we do have some of the other examples.
Yeah.
This is one that's pretty much at the board's discretion. It's not my discretion, so I need you guys to tell me how you want to do it, if you want those meetings, if you want a particular topic, how you want. If you want a particular process for selecting it, that's also fine. Does not have to be done today at this table. But I do need guidance on how we're gonna select topics for those.
Could we possibly, since we do have a study session on artificial intelligence in 2 weeks, could we all contemplate what you've put together and vote, discuss and vote at that study session on AI?
Or you could just put it on the next board meeting too, like it doesn't have to, again.
Except it's February 24th, so it's very soon.
The 10th is the next board meeting, and then there'll be a study session on the 24th.
Right, so I don't know that 2 weeks is enough
So
time.
you could definitely,
The 10th is
First, yeah.
almost a month.
no, I'm thinking, like
But
if we're
between
gonna
the
change
10th
the
and the
10th to 24th, so
24th.
if we're gonna have a subject, I guess, and so to your point, maybe we just decide on the 24th, this board meeting. And then
Monday.
we can do any other ones. We have a lot more time at that point because we're going in strategic planning pretty quickly after that.
Mm-hmm. So did you mean Monday, January 27th, board meeting? At the AI,
That's just the
the study
AI.
session?
Study session is Monday, then I think if you want to change the board relations or change that February 24th, we would do that probably today. I mean, you could do it on the 27th, but we really try and leave any voting off of study sessions. That's the whole point of a study session, so
Right.
like I would prefer to either do one today or again, we don't necessarily have to have a study.
Do you want us to leave board relations as the study
Yes,
session?
right now it's board relations. Do you want to leave it there, or is there something else on the list that you want to place in there? What is most important to the board?
What is the proposal for the board relations one?
That's kind of where, that was one that I think, has come up a few times. That was the only one that was actually on the docket at the time. So there was AI and board relations. So those were the 2 that went in there. I do not have a proposal yet for relations, which is why I said is leave it there and we can figure it out what it is, or we can take one off the list. I don't mind. This is, again, your guys, everyone's, not you, but all of us.
I think we've talked about the board relations for a while, and I think that's why it got put on.
Correct.
Is to possibly bring somebody in that would just kind of review our role and,
That was where we went to with, like, we talked about having Tim Quinn come in and
Right.
talking to us. So that was where we had on the 24th.
Right.
So that was the most, I didn't know if there was a more expanded, but there was definitely like a focus level with someone like Tim Quinn, and we haven't had conversations since last year on whether this date would work or if he's willing to do it. If we're okay to leave it there, we could leave it at that and reach out to him and just ask specifically about that date.
I think so.
And
I think
then,
so. If he can't do that date, then we'll reevaluate and maybe pick another one.
yeah,
Yeah.
Not have one that night and
or not have
give
one,
more,
yeah, so we can.
give more time.
Yeah.
Because
So,
if we're
yeah.
up against it.
Right.
Exactly, like we did have a lot of meetings, so that was the point, was we can cancel some if we need to.
Yeah.
Just, again, it's not my decision to make, and I feel like at least have to have this conversation publicly, and then we can, that gives me enough room to maneuver,
Yeah.
So we would approve it with those, we wouldn't necessarily have it would be subject to be determined for the future strategic planning, and we also would have to confirm with Nick if he can facilitate that those
And we
dates
can make
would
that
work.
call tomorrow to try and find out.
So we've got a few little work to do, but so there could be definitely be there will be a revision of some kind, but I think we've got enough to approve it as is.
So, motion with that?
Yes,
So I'll
yeah, we do need
make a motion to approve the 2025 Board of Education notice of dates as amended.
Second. All right, any other discussion? Stacy, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Raymond,
Yes.
trustee Moon Moore,
Yes.
trustee Ballinger,
Yes.
trustee Bird,
Yes.
trustee Cat,
Yes.
trustee Schmidt,
Yes.
and trustee Newman Bale.
Yes, motion carries. The next discussion item, which was again from consent, is the sex ed committee. That was requested by trustee Pack. Beth, I would defer to you.
Thank you. My concern is that the person that they're choosing for the second co-chair for the Sex Education Advisory Board is an employee of the local Planned Parenthood. And it's my understanding that she is probably a very good educator, but she still comes from a specific perspective. And it's sort of, it seemed to me, a conflict of interest, similar to having RJR Tobacco representative chair a public hospital's lung cancer board, or having a marijuana distributor chair a public schools medical use committee of some sort. It just seemed like in a committee of 22 people, there should be another person that would balance it, not necessarily be the co-chair. And I don't know, I guess my feeling is that it could go back to the committee and see if in consideration they could find another person. It would just be less of person that was demonstrating something that might be questionable to certain parts of the community.
And for other board members, I definitely, not because of the same reasons, I realize that it's a very sometimes divisive subject, that I don't have a lot of those concerns, but I also don't like the perception of any potential of such concerns. So for me, it's not ideal just because of that, not because of the concern of it, just the perception. But at the same time is, and I think that the request was made and there was an update of that Dr. Van Miner did receive from the committee of, that was the only.
We'd asked Dan McGee, who's been the head, kind of that element, so I shared with the board, he had, Jesse had the opportunity to get information from him. That was the only individual that was nominated and stepped forward. But, again, it's the board's purview on that element of accepting, or if the board wanted to send it back, they can have that conversation.
I don't know what other, again, my comments more about perception, and I don't have those concerns, but I don't know if anyone else has any concern or perception either, so.
So I'm just gonna bring my experience forward. I have had the opportunity and the honor of serving on that board before I became a chair or a board member. And actually there were fewer people on it at the time, but there was a very good cross-section of the community, including clergy, including conservative people, including doctors. The majority of people were physicians, actually. And the person that they're recommending is highly qualified. And I think the subjects that people are concerned about are not something that can even be considered under state
point.
policy or law during those conversations. So I am not gonna be, I don't wanna be in the position of second guessing the committee who knows what they're doing, and they've done a very good job. And they made a recommendation that they all stand by, including those conservative cross members and clergy and physicians. So I don't, feel like
And there is
I
no
should be
additional
stepping
power
on
to
those
this
toes.
position.
Correct, there's no power to it, it's a co-chair.
It's a leadership role, though.
She makes no votes that supersede anybody else's.
That I understand, and that I appreciate. And her knowledge base, I would hope, would be excellent. But I think that it's the perception, because they are the largest, Planned Parenthood is the largest provider of abortion services in this country. And has been for years, it's not a glitch. And you're right, at this point, state law protects from that. But there's also been some discussion in the state legislature about changing the law to be a little bit less rigid, particularly for younger kids. Less rigid meaning that you could talk about abortion, you could talk more about some of the things that really tend to divide us. I believe that good sex education is important. I don't know that you start in kindergarten. And that's where the SECAS, which was reference material that was part of the packet with the sex ed materials that were given to us back in August. And I just think there's some concerns about that.
It was in the
packet,
packet, but it was referenced that they did not, they
did not
studied it,
use
but
it.
they did not use it.
They did not use it.
But they included it saying that they were they were considering modifications for the next year. And they were talking about some of the things that they were gonna look at.
I don't think they said that they were gonna consider any of that as modification. I think they said they considered it and didn't.
They didn't use it in
I don't
the
think they said they were
current-
planning on using it or
Well,
considering using
no,
it.
it was reference materials for the next year, for the next round of modifications.
review.
This is
Yeah, it
but
was
this
for
is the
review.
entire committee, not one person. This is 22 people who listed every single piece of information that they looked at in coming to their decisions, whether they used it or not, or whether they were gonna use it or not.
It wasn't
I
just
think
a
Ty,
pile of
I think we need to have
references.
a more voices at the table. I think
Well,
Ty.
I mean, my question is, do the recommendations from the advisory board always come to this body for approval?
This is a first.
That's an interesting question.
That's a first.
By
They were-
policy,
policy, yeah,
yeah,
it is.
when we adopted the term policies, this was a new policy for us. So
So
it
the
does
answer is
now, this
yes?
is the first time, this is the first time.
Because we adopted the policies in late last year.
And I'm
I have no
saying,
problem with it then. I mean, if it's coming to this body for us to recommend, I have no problem.
yeah, and would we be having the same conversation if the co-chair was like a Catholic priest?
I just would like to add that, having served for 6 years, we
As a
have,
co-chair?
we have
Right, we
watched
probably
in
wouldn't have
the
this
process of how the sex ed committee has chosen not only its members, but also its co-chairs. And, there is a very set process of how they do that. And so the trusting of that board. And just like you said, there are physicians, there are parents, there are teachers. I do believe there are very conservative voices on that board. I really appreciated the speakers that, you know, they were very articulate, but I think some of the things that were shared are not accurate of what that committee actually does. That's state mandated education for sex education. And so there are certain things we have to do. That's why we go through this procedure and comes before the board. And so, you know, I just trust in the fact that and according to Jesse, it's the only name that was brought forward. No one else stepped forward to serve in that role. And so I support both Ian McGurn as well as Carrie in that role.
To bring two clarifications, so Jesse got that information from Dan, who's led that, so just make sure that Jesse's saying it. Who's led that group, as we well know. Secondly, it's been a part of that SEAC bylaws and those components and under state law, everything has to come to the board for approval.
Right.
We just now have it in board policy. So, but the practice, because of the state law and the SEAC bylaws, have always required it to be bring before the board. So this isn't the first time, but there is a corresponding now board policy that also double backs that up.
Okay, I remember them introducing Ian McGurn last year, but it wasn't a board vote, correct? It wasn't. This is the first board vote. As far as who's on that committee, I don't know. I truly do not know who is on that committee.
Well, it's listed on the website, you know, and
Actually, I looked for the website and I couldn't get it.
I found
It's
it.
there.
Yeah, it's there.
It could be,
It's on there.
And how people get on the committee, you know, in
Very
22,
specific.
you know, yeah, so I mean, but I don't know, I have a question about how we approve co-chairs on all of our committees, including maybe our central grade, you know, visioning committee, but, you know, I don't have a problem approving their recommendation.
Any other comments or questions? And again, like my comment was, I don't think, you know, it is something that I think we strive to. It's a subject that causes so much controversy when it probably shouldn't, and part of what we've done very well as a group is put as much that aside. And so mine was purely coming on the understanding Beth's position. I do understand it greatly because I think it is something, but my point was biggest, like, okay, was there a choice made? It's like, no, well, actually, there was one and no one else, and it sounds like they tried to get someone else and they couldn't do it. So, yeah, so that was my angle. Any other questions or comments?
My only comment which you all know is that by law, our sex ed curriculum can't deviate from state requirements and prohibitions, and so regardless of who the co-chairs are, or the committee members for that matter, they can't revise our curriculum, our sex ed curriculum in a manner that would be illegal.
And without approval of the board.
And
we will.
right, this is all presented before the board too, any changes to that curriculum, so.
Yeah, that's the big thing on the curriculum. We'll get any changes this year.
but as John has said, curriculum doesn't dictate the whole class experience. So attitude is contributory to a certain degree. And I think that's why to have someone that is Planned Parenthood, I just think it's conflict of interest. It's very serious.
But she's not teaching the class.
She's not
She's
teaching
only
the
part of
class, no.
the advisory committee, but all of that comes before us, before it goes out to the kids.
But
Do you see?
it
So there's
goes back
oversight.
to, it's not just what's on paper. And your leadership is not just what's on paper. You know, if that were the case, then we probably lived a very different world.
Okay, so I guess I'm wondering where anything that has
Yeah.
been,
I mean,
well, no,
at a certain point, go ahead.
anything that we've approved so far has gone awry somewhere.
No, I haven't said that.
Okay,
And
that's
I
what I'm
don't
wondering.
mean to.
They've done I feel like a fantastic job of
Right, yeah,
threading that needle of
right.
requirement and, you know, not getting off track.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'll say is I see your point, I think everyone has implicit biases, and I would not personally call into question someone's judgment and their intentions, unless they gave me a reason to do that. And to this point, if there's 22 members on this committee, there's 20 other people that had the exact same opportunity to step up and be a co-chair.
It's true.
And so, if this was the individual that stepped up to do it and no one else challenged that position, I mean, I have a tough time when people challenge it after the fact, when they had every opportunity to step up and there were 20 other people that could have done that role. So I'll trust the committee in the process. Even though I totally agree with you that there is potential for conflict, but from what I've heard, there's no reason to think that there's conflict. Plus, there's multiple layers of oversight all the way up to the 7 of us.
I hope springs eternal, and thank you for that.
And just a reminder that by law, we do have to post to the public. It goes in the, correct me if I'm wrong, Record Eagle, our website, others of the process for that. If somebody is interested in applying for one of those positions, I believe they're 3-year terms. And when those come up, we do have a process for that. And so if anybody has an interest, they can apply to be on that committee as required under law.
And I think most importantly, all of us have a strong commitment to that process of keeping it as transparent and
And if there, and it clearly states within their bylaws in there, if there are more applicants than seats, it is a random draw.
Any chance somebody has that website handy?
I have it up right now.
I do.
Yeah, I'll come and look at it after.
Oh, I just wondered if somebody could read it out loud to just for the public.
But just the URL?
Dyslexic Ed Advisory.
It's our normal tcaps.net/parents/health-information /.
So I would like to make a motion that the Board of Education appoint Carrie Ellery Smith as the second co-chair of the SEA 8.
I would second.
Sorry, second. Stacy, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Moore?
Yes.
Trustee Bird?
Yes.
Trustee Ballinger?
Yes.
Trustee Pat?
No.
Trustee Schmidt?
Yes.
Trustee Raymond?
Yes.
Trustee Newman Bale?
Yes. Motion carries. Next discussion item is item G, donation from the Holiday Foundation.
Yeah, just real briefly, that was me, but yeah, real briefly, I just want to spotlight the generosity of the Falconers, Meredith and Dan, for their ongoing support of our kids, and to highlight Josie's question during finance about goals for our student support network, and John's comment about being more strategic and with how we're presenting our needs to the community. And I look forward to that, and I think we're ready to do that. And on that, I'll make a motion to accept the donation of $10,000 from the Mahogany Foundation for the Student Support Network.
Second.
Second, Josie. Any other discussion, just to we can have other discussion too, but there is definitely thank you so much, and this is obviously something that is, I know, near and dear to a lot of us. Super exciting that we've had a few agendas now with donations to the Student Support Network.
And I do know we just had a $10,000 donation from the West Shore Bank.
Yeah, it was actually, they beat their goal. I think it was up to 10,700.
Yeah, so they had some.
It wasn't a single, that donation would be a little bit different because it's not one check.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to being more strategic, especially again, 7D, the non-academic needs in order to ensure that all of our kids are ready to learn.
One thing you'll find when we have a Student Support Network, we try and make sure we cover it as much as possible and let the public know that this is a critical need. The donations, we're having plenty, and I believe there's another one that I believe is pending. Another board member told me that.
Yes, I told you, but I don't know that it's formal yet.
So we've
Coming
had a
in
couple.
from, yeah.
We'll continue to make sure that we, formally announce, and once they even have all that information, we'll get it official, with the superintendent's report again, if it's below 20,000.
I would like to just reiterate to Dan and Meredith Faulkner, of their kindness and thinking of TCAPS and supporting the Student Support Network, and also Ty, thanks for pulling it off, just to thank them again. I know we've acknowledged in all our committee meetings, but just very appreciative of their generosity, so.
Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing work.
Ask a question about the Student Support Network. Does this extend just to TCAPS students, this district, or does it extend?
The Student Support Network, yes. McKinney-Vento, in the work that's done under the federal grant, is a 5-county grant that Katie works with.
Okay, and they are not combined funds?
They're not, they're very separate funds by law.
Okay.
And I
was
do
just-
want to encourage potential donors to look at our student support network,
Yeah.
talk to Ginger Smith or maybe
Or
Katie, who wish to, if you have any extra money laying around, you know.
I haven't talked to too many
Please,
fund
isn't there a
groups that after they hear what it's
central,
about have not made a donation, so I think
Right.
it's just about spreading that
No,
word.
it's not a food pantry.
So-
It's a great way to spend $10,000 and take it off your taxes. So,
I just had a quick question. So are the Falconers related to former board?
They are.
president
They are.
Eric?
They are.
Okay.
I believe
Brother.
it's his brother, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Lovely. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you again.
Yep, so there is a motion on the table, and a second, without any further discussion, Stacy, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Schmidt,
Yes.
trustee Ballinger,
yes.
trustee Bird,
Yes.
trustee Moore,
Yes.
trustee Pack,
Yes.
trustee Raymond,
Yes.
trustee Newman Bale.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you again. That does end the discussion items, so we are now on to public comment number 2, looking out. Bill, you're not eligible, so there is no additional public comment. So we're on to closed session. So we are now at the closed session portion of our agenda. May I have a motion for the board to go into closed session?
I know, you go ahead.
It's a long one, so
It is.
I'll try my best. I move that the Board of Education go into closed session for the purposes of consulting with an attorney on pending litigation, Kimberly Gilbert as personal representative for the estate of Jason William Hogabeen versus Traverse City Area Public Schools et al. Case 24 CV 01329 in the United States District Court, Western District of Michigan, as allowed by Section 8E of the Open Meetings Act, because such a discussion in open session would have a detrimental financial effect on the school district's litigation or settlement position, and to consider a privileged written attorney-client communication. Attorney communications dated December 10th, 2024, under MCL 15.2431G, as allowed by Section 8H of the Open Meetings Act.
I second.
Second, any discussion? Stacy, please conduct a roll call vote.
Trustee Raymond,
Yes.
trustee Ballinger,
Yes.
trustee Bird,
Yes.
trustee Moore,
Yes.
trustee Pack,
Yes.
trustee Schmidt,
Yes.
and trustee Newman Bale.
Yes, even with the higher 5 votes to pass, the motion does carry. We're now in closed session. We will return to this room and the feed when that is done. return to open session. We are now in open session. Closing remarks, welcome Ty, first board meeting. And thanks Stacy. This is Stacy's last meeting with us. Fortunately, we had the distraction of Christmas and she managed to escape, but we are fortunate to have Tammy as her replacement, and we will look forward to thank you everything that you've done. So I didn't bring you flowers and I feel bad because Beth always outdoes does me, but that's I do appreciate you greatly. So
Not always, not always.
So with
You
that,
still have time to shower her with gifts.
I wasn't.
Just in case there's any confusion.
I think there's some hot water in our future. So do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Meeting adjourned.